There we go. And we are live. Oh, why has this happened again?
Me, it was my fault. I put my fucking mute on so that I
Thank.
could type
Oh
in the
no.
chat,
Oh, thank
and
you.
obviously forgot to put
Oh,
it back on by the time we
oh,
went live.
I
Hello,
was so worried.
happy Wednesday. Let's hope that's the worst fuck up we come across this episode after the chaos that was trying to start last week.
Oh,
Hello, happy Wednesday. It's nearly the end of June. It's deliriously hot. How did it get so hot? I feel like yesterday it was still miserable and grey, and now I've got a cycling glove tan with a brown arm and a pasty white hand, and I don't know when that happened, but I hope everyone is enjoying the sunshine. Tom, are you alive?
yes, only vaguely, only barely. Oh my word! If we'd have started another episode with, I'd have, I don't know,
We are
I'd have
good.
died of
Don't
embarrassment.
you
Oh, I'd
worry.
have, oh,
No, that was my fault. I was like, you know what I don't want to happen?
oh.
I don't want everyone to be seeing our like cool little animation intro and hearing my clickety clackety keyboard underneath. So I put myself on mute, and
Uh,
then I didn't take myself off mute in time to uh say hello to everyone like I said I was gonna. But I've done it now. I'm off mute. I'm saying hello. I haven't seen anyone in the chat saying they can't hear me. So hopefully that's all that nice and resolved now. How have you been since we saw you last, buddy?
Yes, I've been good. I've been good. What have I been doing? I've been doing all the promo for the Edinburgh show coming up. So I've been tweeting and all that kind of stuff around about that. I did a version of the show is like nearly like in its kind of final form now. Um, so
Yeah.
so if you
So
want,
everyone coming to see it at Blizzard is in for a treat.
indeed. It now ends with me getting shot at by a nail gun for a magic trick because I mentioned this. So I did the like some of the interviews for Blizzard as well, which we've been sharing around.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
and the person who directed the show was like this show doesn't have enough danger in it, and I was like, so I googled what are the most dangerous like magic tricks, and as I'm sure you may know, like catching a bullet is the like like one that's like, actually killed magicians. So I was like, how do I do my own version of that? And I was like, okay, so what about if I have a nail gun fired at me on stage? Um, so that is the end of the stand up horror show. So if you want to come watch that, that is what we're building up towards over the entire hour.
That sounds amazing. I have popped links to both the interview that you did for the Blizzard blog and the ticket booking link where people can book a ticket to see you do your preview with Ben Hodge on 3rd of July in the chat. I think that sounds sick as hell. I think it's very cool. Because you've gone to like a lot of lengths, like you learn to read tarot for this.
Mm.
Are you actually going to learn how to catch a bullet the way that like old-timey magicians would?
I looked into it. One of the reasons why I decided to do it with a nail gun was because I so if for you to have a gun on stage, there's like loads of like laws around like that.
Yeah, I can't say that surprises me.
Yeah, and understandably so. So I was like, okay, so I'm not so sure how if I'm going to be able to like sort out all the licensing stuff for all this kind of stuff. So what I thought I would do is I would combine the dodge catching a nail with like dodging knives that have been thrown at you. So what I've done is I've got like a multi nail gun that gets shot across the stage that I will then dodge the nails in the
Okay.
yeah. So
That doesn't sound less dangerous, I'm not gonna lie.
well, that's what I was aiming for. I wanted to keep the danger, but also not have to fill in any forms. So like that is very clearly a nail gun. So that's how that came about. So yeah,
Love it.
I don't know if you've had a look at the ticket sales, but I know of at least a couple of people who've told me that they're coming or have booked tickets. So I'm hoping that that's doing okay for tickets.
We've booked 10 tickets so far, and given it is still 2 weeks away, that is more than we have normally sold.
That's good.
Not just for a preview, but for any show. We get all of our bookings in the last 3 days because our show's normally on a Monday. From the Thursday beforehand, we will get 15 to 20 ticket sales.
Mm.
And sometimes at this point, we'll have sold six, seven. The one time I was very confident we were going to sell out was we'd sold 12 at this point. Um, and then we get the rest of our bookings in the last few days. So the fact that we've booked 10 already is a solid sign for any of our shows, let alone a preview show where for our preview with the absolutely wonderful and brilliant Sam Serrano and Ryan Kenny, where we had like a half full room. I think we only actually like had 7 tickets booked and then more people than that showed up, which is ridiculous, right? Because so I work in marketing and this is the benchmark for corporate marketing. And I want to do point out that things like Blizzard, which is a pay what you want event, but it also has a very big community behind it. That is less about it's not trying to sell you stuff, but at work in my day job, we also put on free events, and it's about kind of showcasing use cases of software for businesses. And we work on the assumption that if however many tickets you've booked at a free event, half of the people will show up out of the people who have booked a ticket. Like I started off applying that logic to Blizzard by overbooking the shows. And it got to the point that we were consistently selling out and then having to turn people away because so many people showed up. And generally, people will not do pay what you want shows because if you haven't invested, like, say, even a £2 booking fee into an evening out, you're more likely to be like, oh, well, I'm not losing anything, am I? I'm just going to not come. Which is why I still applied that logic with Blizzard, and we get more people show up than book tickets consistently. We'll have a couple of dropouts on the day usually if someone's like unwell or whatever. And that's normal. But we also have a very polite and very lovely crowd who will then message us to let us know, which I really appreciate. It makes my job a lot easier, knowing that we have people who can communicate effectively come into our show. But yeah, so 10 tickets at this point when we're still 2 weeks away is very good, very solid. I reckon you're gonna have a good night.
Fabulous, and it's also with my best mate in comedy, Ben Hodge, who is now actually a part of the stand-up horror show. Like,
Yes.
yes, he's now got a role in it as so not to give too much away, but he's kind of a like almost like a bit of like an assistant to the night now. So he would have been there anyway, but now you can come see the stand up horror show and you can see Ben do his own thing, which is I think about to get the rocket ship attached to it. The amount of like publicity that's kind of getting on it.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're like wondering about whether or not to pop down, like you definitely should because like he'll be on the telly soon.
He will. Oh my God, he's so good.
Mm.
Um, I'm so impressed by Ben. Like we had Ben on really early in his career and really early in our show, so like quite a few years ago, like before lockdown. And he was just doing like a 5 spot, figuring his way into comedy, and now I am sure he's going to be the next big thing. He's incredible.
Mm.
He's so dedicated and he's so authentic.
Mm.
He's quite comfortable like being vulnerable and personal in front of a crowd in a way that you can't help but connect with. I'm
Yeah,
so impressed by Ben.
yeah.
Um, what was I going to say? Are you going to do a London date at all for the stand-up horror show?
Um,
Because I have like a bunch of friends who want to see it, um, but aren't going to Edinburgh, missed your Brighton shows, um, and I can't go up to Manchester for your show because Johnny's gone and booked it on my dad's birthday because they are rude.
I agree. I agree. Well, the beginning of the post Edinburgh tour is starting to kind of shape up. So I've got a Nottingham date. I've got which I just got confirmed like yesterday, and hopefully another Edinburgh date, and I'm planning on moving down south after the summer, so I'm very likely going to kind of get myself settled and then do some stand-up horror shows down in the new year. Not in the new year, in the like new academic year. So
Yeah.
it is very likely that I will be hitting you up for like potential venues that would be receptive to it and be like a good place for it. Um, so yes, so there is. I think that there will be some down south shows soon, but they've. It's just a case of finding the right location, and
Yeah.
everything to kind of come together.
I think London has some, if you don't, right, I don't, there, right, some places have come to mind,
Mm.
and I don't know if they're venues per se, but like there are some, I reckon there are some bars that would be up for having this sort of show. But again, I don't know if they're normally show venues, if they have a license for that sort of thing. But there are places that have some weird decor that would really suit it, like places that are like ye old curiosity shop covered in like animal bones and taxidermy and stuff. And they've got like a whole weird goth occult vibe that I feel like would 100% suit your show.
Yeah,
100%. Um, assuming they have like a license to put on performances
yeah.
if that is something that they need.
Well,
Um,
I'm in a lucky position where when I go down to London when I go down to the southeast, probably Sussex, um, I will. I've got two shows that I'm going to be kind of pitching to venues, which is the Wheel of Misfortune, um, and also the stand up horror show. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to kind of pick up like shows like around the southeast that I've never gigged in, that I'll be able to be like promoting this kind of new in inverted commas like comedy shows, just because
mhm.
they've not been in that area. So for your mates who are interested, I would just tell them to hang tight, because I think in the very near future there will be a whole bunch of southeast stand-up horror shows. Because ideally, what I'd like to be able to do, I've already got ideas for what I think I'll do next year. Because I've got this idea for like stand-up horror show 2023, that like an updated version of it. Um, but what I think would be cool is if in the first 6 months of the year I find venues that want to do Wheel of Misfortune, the more
Mhm.
kind of broader comedy clowning show, and in the latter half of the year when it gets darker, do the stand up horror show at various venues, and I think
That sounds cool.
I think that'd be quite a nice little tour to be able to put on for either one, and I can update both shows like annually anyway.
Mhm. Yeah, they're both very kind of flexible, versatile shows that can retain what makes them unique while also being updated based
Mm.
on, I don't know, what you find funny at the moment. Doesn't have to be like, topical or anything.
No, well, I mean, I personally, I don't know about you, but I like comedy that is able to kind of, like not date as much as I can. Do you know, like, whenever I like, so if you go on my like YouTube channel and stuff like that, all the content that's on there has generally been edited and created so that you could watch it today, or you could watch it in 5 years time, or you could watch it back when it came out, and like because I've not put any kind of references in there, it's I try and make it as timeless as possible, and I've tried to do that with these shows as well.
I get that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that gives your work some longevity. You'll end up like, with like look at John Robertson. He's been doing the dark room for what, like 10 years?
Yeah, yeah, he's someone who I definitely take like inspiration from in regards to that. But I mean, I've actually done the marketing and the programming for the dark room like twice in my years as a marketer at the Frog and
Nice.
Bucket, but I've never actually like the the planets and the stars have never aligned for me to be able to watch it, but I have seen little bits of it, and I feel like the dark room, from what I've you know and I'm saying this as someone who's not watched it, so I could be wrong here. I feel like the Dark Room kind of stays relatively the same. Um,
Yeah.
and I just know that I'm not the type of performer that could do that. In fact, I wish I could do that because I could probably make more money. Um, but for me, there's a part of me that's like, okay, I need to make these shows that I can like update them, but have them still remain that you could like watch them at any point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And remain that distinct show as well.
yeah. I mean, that's another thing as well. Like, I don't know if you've done it, but like, I feel like I've probably subconsciously done it with this show where I've tried not to be putting any kind of like references into this podcast because I would like because I'm aware that people would like say if someone comes in on the Pikachu episode that we're gonna do, like
Yeah.
I'd like the idea of them being able to go back and listen through, you know, and if we. You know, I'm immediately going to date it. If we start putting in this episode loads of stuff about submarines, it's immediately obvious when we did this.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that. I don't necessarily mind things being a product of their time in a way, because I feel like regardless of how much conscious choice we make to talk or not talk about what's going on, like our thoughts are going to be shaped by the context of the moment in which we live.
Yeah,
Like that's just inescapable. Um, so I don't mind if it's going to be hugely dated because there's going to be a timestamp on all the recordings anyway. Like people know when we said it.
yeah,
But at the same time, yeah, no, like we didn't do a topical show. We did a Pokemon show. We're talking about 20 years ago, 25-year-old Pokemon. Like we don't need to be talking about what happened yesterday, because we're supposed to be talking about Pokemon and we have been live for 20 minutes and have not done that.
well,
Shall we start talking about Pokemon?
yeah, let's do it. Well, should I show you my image?
Yes, let's do our drawings.
There we go. Right, lovely segue. Right. Now, I mean, I mentioned off stream that these here I don't think are very good. I feel like these are my worst ones that I have done so far, and and the ones that I've done have not been great. You know what I mean?
Aww.
None of them have been Picasso. So this is my Pidgey, and I'm going to preempt this by saying I think that what happened was I have a very clear image of what Pidgey is in my head, and that's because Pidgey, as I'll mention in the podcast, is like my original main Pokemon, right? So I've got it like really clear in my head. I think how I imagined it as a child, and it was really difficult to get over that as a creative block. So I feel like none of these actually look like Pidgey. In all honesty, right? So
you got the Pidgey in your head and not the Pidgey in reality.
Yeah. As you'll see, I personally think my Pidgey looks a bit more like Spearow, to be honest. But this is what I've gone with.
All right.
So
okay.
So
I see it.
Yeah. So what I've gone for here is, and I feel like I've definitely this is definitely Spearow's influence. This this Justin Timberlake style. I don't know, frosted tips that he's clearly got going on. But what I thought I would do is I would have them trying to eat some executes in a nest.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I went for there. Right. So that's my first one. What? How did yours turn out?
So as I mentioned earlier, off camera, I also felt like it took me a little while to set into these. I feel like I hit my stride in the later evolutions, but my Pidgey I struggled with a little bit because like it's just a bird. It's just a bird. It's not a pointy bird like Spearow. It's a little fat bird, but it's pointier than like P-Dove and Fletchinder and all those. It's a pointier bird, but not as pointy as Spearow. So I tried to make mine like a little bit pointy and a little bit round. And also I feel like the crayons I chose were the wrong color for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know I didn't feel like doing an action shot would suit Pidgey's personality, but I couldn't find a way to make it look cute without making it look like it was something else. So I just went with just like the bog standard, really basic little Pidgey. And I don't even think it looks that much like a Pidgey. I think mine also has some like elements of Spearow in its face.
Mm,
It looks too angry, but like that's what its pointy face looks like, you
mm.
know?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's yeah, I've just got a really basic, could be any bird. If I didn't tell you it was a Pidgey, it would just be any bird.
I love its little dad belly it's got.
Okay, so this is a theme we're gonna notice again, yet again. I've done a lot of fat Pokemon again this episode,
uh,
but I feel like like Generation 1 had a lot of fat Pokemon, and I got a lot of time for them. So go on. What's your Pidgeotto look like?
okay, my Pidgeotto. Right, I feel like Pidgeotto is the best of the three that I did. Right,
All right.
I went for an action shot, but again, I feel like it doesn't particularly look like a Pidgeotto. Right, so I went for the scene in the anime where Pidgeotto attacks Caterpie.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
because Ash hasn't got like the types down properly. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've done quite a good job here. If it weren't for the fact that my Pidgeotto, I think, looks more like a Noctowl.
All right. So I think when you look at it and you know what it is, I know that scene. I know the scene you're trying to draw. But like the way its legs are all bunched up, kind of looks like half Pidgeotto, half Jinx. Like
Yeah.
it's it's a bit chesty.
Do you know what part of the problem was, right? And I mentioned this in the video. I'll upload a video after we've done the episode. But like, I went to draw its legs, and I drew this one, which I feel was normal shapes. And then for some reason, this one here became a massive leg, like as if they've been skipping leg day on this one, but not this one. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that was part of the problem. I started off with the feet. I'll tell you another issue that I had. Right, I started off with the feet because I was like, oh, I think that the feet are like the best bit of this drawing, right? And then I was like, oh, this is going quite well. And then I realised that I didn't have enough room to put the rest of his head in.
Yeah, yeah, your Pidgeotto picture has a lot more Caterpie in it than Pidgeotto.
Yeah, well, I mean, they are the protagonist of this scene, aren't they? Which was a problem that I did
Yeah,
not
yeah,
foresee.
yeah.
Um,
So, Saf said in the comments, Pidgey got blank, but you've got a profanity filter on your Twitch, so I don't know what she thinks your Pidgey's got.
well, it's not on my OBS, so it's tits.
Mm. Yeah, okay, yeah, no, that tracks.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I've done a similar route. I've also gone with an action shot, but instead of doing the action shot Pidgeotto v Caterpie, I did like a Pidgeotto later on
Mm.
when it's Ash's Pidgeotto and is like trained and powerful. And I feel like I hit my stride. And when if you watch the recording I did when I uploaded it to YouTube, you'll notice that like I did the attack first because I was most confident about just doing some circles. But this is my Pidgeotto doing a whirlwind.
Oh, that's so good. That is so much better than my one. Oh, mine's got no chance now. That's very good.
Thank you.
I'm very impressed. What's it doing?
Like,
What's it doing a whirlwind on, in your opinion?
don't know, just whatever's down here. Um, I with my one, like I don't know how much it'll come across because I obviously speed up my videos so I don't get copyright striked on the music I'm listening to when I'm drawing them.
Mm.
Um, but I very much didn't think my Pidgeotto was coming gonna look very good until like the very end. Like the whole again, and like I'm gonna hold it back up again. I did sort of he's got a little bit of a belly as well, and he's got quite chunky legs.
Oh yeah.
Like I have stuck with my like fat Pokemon type um style, which I do not intend to change. I
No.
am never doing it on purpose. I'm never sitting down with my pens and my crayons and going, I'm going to do a well fat Pokemon right now. I just happen to sit down and they come out fat and I don't mind.
I applaud you. It's very body positive. Any Pokemon that are watching, You know, we love Pokemon of all bodies and types, whether you've got a big belly or big tits.
Just those two body types, big belly or big tits, nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, there's like I'm open to suggestions, but those seem to be the main two. Um, right,
Yes. I
right.
can't wait till we have to draw Jinx. Like, what the fuck are we gonna do?
Uh, well, I can tell you this: what I'm going to do. It's definitely only going to be done with a purple pen because I ain't
Mm,
got time for that kind of backlash.
absolutely.
Right,
Yes.
I'm going to show you my Pidgeot, right, because I feel like this is like got a 50-50 chance of um, winning the competition. I do not know. So I went for. I think that this is relatively stylized. As I mentioned in the podcast, Pidgeot is like my very first main Pokemon that I ever had. So I was like, I was in two minds. Do I go down the try and do it like based on the sprite work, or do I do it try and do it based on the Pokemon trading card game, which I also know quite well. And I went for this, and I immediately regretted it because it didn't come out well. So I went with the sprite work. This is based off of the sprite for Pokemon Red and Blue. Um, so I went with that.
Aww,
Yeah, I think it's alright. I think it's quite
it's
cool.
cute.
So I went with that, and I also put in this because it is an ode to my actual Pidgeot that I had back in the day, along with how I kind of the beginning of the fly animation, you know, where it would like make the screen go out. So that's what I went for with this, a colorized version of what I remembered the Pokemon Red and Blue sprite work to look like. Because if you look, he is like quite kind of like bunched up, and
Yeah.
the plumage across the back. So
Yeah.
that's what I went for with this. Um, now, try and beat that, mate.
All right. So mine, I have gone for another iconic anime scene in mine, and it's the bit where Ash's Pidgeotto becomes a Pidgeot in order to
Mm,
protect the Pidgeys from the Fearow,
mm,
right? And I do not really remember the episode as well as I really should do before this episode of our podcast. But I do remember the Pidgeot looking very threatening as it like dives towards its opponent. And when I think of Pidgeot, I think about the Pokedex entries I'm sure we're going to explore in depth later on about how it can go as fast as a plane and it kind of like nose diving at
mm.
things being its like key piece of attack, which is why my Pidgeot looks like this.
Oh, that's pretty sick. That's pretty cool. I was considering doing a similar thing for my Pidgeotto. I think that is. Uh, this is one where I'm like, oh, who's going to win? Because that is very cool. I do like it.
I
Uh,
think I like that we've taken this is like the opposite of our Kakuna episode where we took the same approach and we were like, what do people like out of the same approach? This is like we've taken two different approaches, and it's which approach do people
mm,
prefer?
well,
So that'll be an interesting one to see. Keep your eyes peeled on our socials to vote on which of these you like the most
yes.
over the next little while.
Also, feel free to send in your own if you decide to do the competition, which is where we do it in 10 minutes and it must have colour and you can't use a reference or rebut your mistakes, because if you could rebut your mistakes, my Pidgeotto would have smaller tits. That is for sure. Right, shall we go into the episode?
Let's do it.
Right,
So,
go on.
Pidgey, do you have fond or strong memories of Pidgey from your childhood, Tom?
Um, yes. So I definitely had a Pidgey, and I'm pretty sure that I don't think that Pidgey was the first Pokemon that I came across. Um, um, but I do remember catching a Pidgey, and Pidgey is potentially the first Pokemon I ever caught. Um, and there's a version, I want to say, a version of Pokemon Blue that I played, and I realised early on that if you just use the same Pokemon, you can like level them up really quickly. And
You realised that, did you?
I did. As I said that, the moment I said it, I was like, oh, the 10-year-old me just bubbled to the surface. Then, like that logic just came straight out of my mouth. But but yeah, so I've had a Pidgey and Pidgeot specifically became my main for that particular run through. And in the Pidgeot episode, I'm gonna mention what happened to that Pidgeot because it's also that Pidgeot is the reason why I don't have mains anymore because it didn't end well. There we go. There's a little bit of a tag or a hook to get people on for the Pidgeot episode. I'm pretty sure that Pidgeot, similar to Caterpie, similar to Weedle, I feel like everybody's had a Pidgey at some point, particularly if you came in at Gen 1. And I had one, and it was my favourite for a very long time. I'm a big fan.
Nice. So in when I first played Generation 1 games, I was very much the kind of person who just over-leveled my starter and everything else just sat in a fucking box. Which is not a great strategy, but I fucking won all the time, so I didn't need to change it. And I remember I have played through the Generation 1 games countless times. It's not like, oh, I've played through once or twice. It's like I played through these games maybe hundreds of times because I didn't have other games. I just played these ones. So I remember having bashed through with all 3 starter Pokemon at like level 100 and everything else just like the level I caught it at, because you don't get the experience share until after you defeat the Elite Four in Red and Blue. And like never, like only really leveling stuff up to evolve, and then dumping it because I wanted the dex. But I remember going down towards the Indigo Plateau with my party of I don't know, whatever starter I had at the time. Surprisingly high level Pidgey, all things considered. A Rattata, maybe a Spearow if I'd caught one yet. Going that way and then meeting the rival. And usually my approach was just to use my starter and like potions to fix it. And then my Pidgey did surprisingly well, beating the other trainers' Pokemon. I was really pleased. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll use Pidgey in more things then. And sort of figuring out quite late game that like some Pokemon were good and not just the starters. But I vividly remember a Pidgey kind of saving my ass when I thought all hope was lost. And from then on, I definitely made an effort to keep my Pidgey at a better level so that I had like a secondary in a way. Particularly in run-throughs where I picked Squirtle as my starter, because I think Pidgey can be quite valuable early on. In that it's whichever starter you pick, it's decently effective against your opponent's starter. But if you've got Squirtle, it's super effective against Bulbasaur. So having something that's super effective against your opponent that early on, I think is definitely a big boon. Like I tend to avoid Pidgey now because I like having dual types on my team and I don't like having normal types on my team. So if I have a flying type, I like using the Fletchling evolutionary line. I've had quite a few Talonflames. I also do a lot of Pokemon breeding for shinies, so I like that Talonflame hatches eggs quicker with its flame body. I like Rookity. Rookity was a good one, flying in steel. slow, and like here's the thing with Rookedy and Fletchling, I always approach those games going, but I don't want like my second main partner to be the obvious choice of the first bird Pokemon you meet. But because they're really quality dual types, I can't not.
Mm.
It's so easy to like fall into that trap and be like, actually, yeah, I want this one on my team.
Mm.
But I never like when I get a Pidgey, I always kind of think it's going to be too easy to have Pidgeot on my team, and I try to avoid it.
Mm.
And then because Pidgey is very useful going through that forest, for sure, I usually end up with a Pidgeot on my team, even if I don't want one. When I'm playing a game with a Pidgey in it, particularly if it's an early level game. I recently replayed Pokemon Let's Go, and I thought I'm going to mix it up a bit. I'm actually going to consciously decide not to use the obvious Pokemon on my team.
Mm.
So I had an Eevee because I've got Let's Go Eevee, so you get an Eevee. Um, and I tried to avoid using Pidgey. I was like, I'm gonna use a Spearow because it's so like Pidgey is the default one because it's like we were talking about Beedrill and Butterfree. Butterfree was on Ash's team, so it's the good one.
Mm.
Beedrill's the pointy one, so it's the bad, scary one.
Mm.
So I was like, Pidgey is the good one because Pidgeotto is on Ash's team. Spearow is the bad, scary one, so people avoid it. I was like, what if I try a Spearow? And I did not use the Spearow. I ended up sticking with Pidgey again.
Mm.
Like my Pidgeotto on that game now is so much better than the Spearow I had wanted to be on my team that I just gave up and put the Spearow in the box.
Yeah, that I've had that happen where I've given a Pokemon a chance and it's been on the team for a little while, and I just feel like it's increasingly just not doing quite what I want it to, and I have to kind of swap it out. I was going to mention like Spearow because like you say that's the kind of duality that comes in with this generation, Pidgey and Spearow, and I think that Spearow, not only because of the anime, but if I'm right, I think it comes in later as well. I want to say your first encounter, like this.
Yeah, so you'll meet Pidgey and Rattata on Route 1 immediately out of Pallet Town. Spearow is in Viridian City, kind of. So you have to get through Route 1 to Viridian City, and then you go left
Mm.
to towards Indigo Plateau, and Spearow is in that little patch of grass. But there are also Pidgey and Rattata, and less common are Spearow and the two Nidorans.
Mm.
So that like you have to go. That was another one I tried to use. I was like, I'm gonna use a Nidoran. I'm gonna like that's gonna be my poison
Yeah,
Pokemon. I didn't.
yeah.
I've already given up on it. The Nidoking I had was shit.
Well, I mean,
Didn't like using it.
I did Let's Go Pikachu, and I had a similar
Mm-hmm.
thing. And the thing that really helped me was that, so I wasn't expecting it. I came across a shiny Oddish, which is
Mm-hmm.
the reason why I've got Gloom as the as like my little mascot for this.
Yeah.
Um, but the fact it was shiny and the first shiny I'd ever caught, um, made me go, okay, so this here feels like a Pokemon that I'll like have on the team, and because it was a Pokemon that I'd never had before, it made me go, okay, so this is, um, I then built the team around this Pokemon that I didn't expect to get,
Yeah.
and because otherwise I'd have probably just got myself like a Venusaur again, um,
Yeah.
but because there was no point in having a Venusaur and a Vileplume. So I was like, right, well, I'm sticking with Vileplume, and I respected that Pokemon. Like, I was so impressed by like how much I enjoyed using it, and then I kind of built the rest of the team around it. Um, but I have had instances where I've picked up Pokemon and I've been like, okay, I'm going to use you, and I'm hoping that you're going to become like a member of the team. And then just over time, I've been like, either they've not got the defense I need or the attack strength that I need. Like I'm trying to think of one
Yeah.
that happened with. Um, So like, I feel like that's happened with oh, who's that happened with? I feel like that. Oh, I tried a Wobbuffet for ages, and I just can't seem.
All right.
I just can't seem to get the mechanics down.
I think Wobbuffet is one of those ones that you do have to. Um, you've got to have an idea of how you're going to use it strategically. You can't go in and just brute force it, you know, because its primary move is counter,
Mm,
which means you have to know how to capitalize on that defense and use your opponent's strength against them,
yeah,
which, you know, it's so much easier just to brute force your way through it with like type advantages and higher levels.
yeah.
So much easier.
I've thought of another two that well,
Go on.
more 1.5. I do like Shedinja, and I
Mm-hmm.
tried to do Shedinja and Ninjask, and I was impressed enough by the kind of concept of Shedinja that I kept Shedinja, but over time I felt like even though Ninjask was so fast, it's like its defense was like I can't conceivably keep you on the team, so I had to like get rid of
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
I get that.
But yeah, with Pidgey, I feel like Pidgey is like such a for me. I feel like it's such a good kind of all round. I think it also helps the fact that Fly is a useful HM.
Mm,
It's one of the few,
it is.
yeah, like in the first generation, probably one of the probably two, yeah, possibly two decent HMs like Fly,
Yeah.
and I feel like the other one's Surf, and
Yeah.
the others are rubbish. Like you know,
Yeah.
and the fact that you,
Ash can fuck off.
yeah, I agree, I agree. Um, um, like cut, not very good. I remember the first time I had to put cut on a Pokemon, and
Yeah.
like the only Pokemon I could have it on was my starter. So then I had this
Mm.
Charizard that I like that had this move on that I like didn't like, and I remember that was kind of the first time that I was like, right, I don't particularly like the fact that the HMs are like stuck. I feel like they've gotten the HMs down a lot better in more recent.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that they don't take up a move anymore.
Mm,
I thought the like let's go thing where it's like your starter learns all these moves that normally human beings are supposed to do was weird. I didn't love that.
mm.
Like, because it implies that you live in a world where human beings can just randomly fly. Um,
Well,
but yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
the Wright brothers would take issue with that.
but yeah, so I had kind of, yeah, I think fly is definitely a very good move. I think it's very, um, it's, yeah, I think, yeah, you're right. Fly and surf are just the good ones.
Yeah,
They're the ones you don't mind taking up a space. I did really appreciate, like, you know, I don't know if the logic always made sense, but like not having to take up a space on your party's attacks,
mm,
definitely appreciated in later games.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I'm glad you don't have to carry around an HM slave, so you've got like a level 100 fucking Rattata because it's been sitting in your party with the EXP share on,
mm,
and like it's got Rock Smash and Cut and Flash or whatever else Rattata can actually learn. Strength.
yeah. I mean, it does it winds me up. There's a couple of generations where like I can definitely think of like where HMs like wound me up. I think generation 3 is that where you've got like
Yeah.
waterfall and dive and surf, and yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm fairly certain that if like Feraligatr is considered like one of the best like starters, and there's a good chance that you might have a Feraligatr that has then got that's just basically a HM slave.
Surf, waterfall, whirlpool, and cut.
Yeah,
Dive.
rubbish. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I've definitely done that.
I mean we've not mentioned it on the channel. I don't think I don't think we've mentioned it, but one of the first things that me and you got chatting about was I don't know if you remember this Bidoof.
Yeah, no, I do.
Yeah,
I remember.
and
I sent you all the Bidoof butt pictures I took on Pokemon Snap.
yeah. I was in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all that. What do they call it now? What's that Dan Smooth that Miley Cyrus does? Um,
Twerking.
yeah, twerking, all those Bidoofs twerking. Um,
Yeah.
but but like I really like Bidoof, you really like Bidoof, and Bidoof is like considered a HM slave, and it's like they deserve so much more than that.
Yeah. I think the same can be said for a lot of those like early stage rodent Pokemon.
Mm.
Because especially if, like in this generation, and we should probably be saving this for the Rattata episode, to be honest, because you need something with cut, and you don't want it to be your starter.
Mm.
It's gonna be your Rattata, you know, or it's gonna if you're lucky enough to have caught like a Bellsprout or something, which are around but rare, you know, in those early bits of the game. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I do. I think that Pidgey is a decent all round Pokemon, and I think the fact that Fly is a decent HM like definitely helps. And I remember like when I got Fly, and I was like, and it was like, oh, you can just like fast travel now, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's just gonna speed everything up like so much. Because I mean, you know, I should save this all the way for the Articuno episode, but that's going to be ages away. I was never able to work out how to do the Seafoam Islands.
All
Um,
right.
so what I used to do was I would fly to Pallet Town, surf down, and get to Cinnabar Island that way. Um, just because I just could not, you know, the puzzle where you've got to put the rocks in so that you don't get done by.
Yeah.
I just could not work it out. So so for me, like Fly unlocked other opportunities in order for me to kind of
Mm.
like speed through the game.
Yeah. We'll come. I'm sure we'll come back to this when we talk about Arcano. But I actually wish there were more puzzles like the Seafoam Islands. I really like the challenge of it,
Mm.
and it's like the fact that you can just miss Articuno entirely and it's not handed to you. I think was so good compared to the way that now they just give you legendaries.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck off, make me work for it.
Mm.
I don't care about this legendary now because you just gave me one. Everyone's fucking got one.
Mm. Yeah.
And like, I think that kind of ties back to Pidgey in that when I like if I worked that hard to get my Articuno, it felt more worthwhile giving up the Pidgeot I'd have with me since it was a level 2 Pidgey.
Mm.
Whereas now I'm just given a legendary. I don't even use it once. I just put it straight in the box
Yeah.
because like I've raised these Pokemon, I've trained these
Mm.
Pokemon. I did not have to work for this legendary. I have to solve a puzzle. Didn't have to find it hidden in some far-flung corner of the map. Like, and even if there is a bit of a puzzle, like they're kind of handed to you on a plate still. Like the answers are right there. I realize I'm an adult now, but even now going back and playing Blue, I am sure because there is like so little guidance, you have to do so much on your own. I would appreciate Seafoam Islands and the puzzle in those caves
Mm.
more than I do the new ones.
Yeah.
Playing as an adult who's already done it a million times and knows exactly what to do.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, when you were talking about that, it reminded me of. So I can't remember if I mentioned, but I had a gap after Ruby, and came back in at Platinum, and I remember like I just had to download Victini, and then literally just,
Yeah,
you know, you just jumped on a boat, went up some stairs, and then you got it. And
in Pokemon Let's Go, if you've got I think the previous two games saved on your Switch, you just get given like Jirachi
yeah, you do.
and another a Mew
Yeah.
at like and you just get them in the second and you've got two legendaries at like level 5 that you can then just have on your team from the beginning and I'm like I feel like this is too much a case of if you've bought more of our stuff you get more Pokemon for in your game. I don't like that.
Mm.
And because like you know some kids don't have the opportunity to buy those things and where are they going to get those Pokemon from? Like I think if you can't get it in the game, like it shouldn't be a case of you buy something in the real world to get it. That makes me very uncomfortable. I think it's quite exclusionary to like low income families uh and children. These games are targeted at children that are too young to understand what that
Mm.
means, you know. um and I also think it's too easy. Like I want to feel like I didn't care about that Mew or that Jirachi
Mm.
because they were just given to me. I wanted to earn it.
Yeah.
I never got a Mew in Red and Blue, and I 100% know that if I had managed to get a Mew, I would have cherished it
Mm.
more than I have cherished any Mew I've had since.
Yeah. I say I've had Muse, uh, because when I was a kid I had a Game Shark, so um, I I got a Mew doing that. I tell you, I do have a Mew that I consider to be mine, which was
Hmm.
I bought a I've definitely not mentioned this on the podcast, but when I was about 11 or 12, my house burnt down when I was a kid, and there was only like certain things from my house that I like saved. So like my Pokemon card collection was from my house. So I'll probably never get it. I'll probably never like sell it. Not that it's like probably worth anything. Because I like played with it, so it's not like it's like
Yeah.
high graded or anything. But
No, but it's got sentimental value
yeah,
to you.
and but as a result, my copies of Red and Blue are not my original copies, and um, what I did was so I had a Nintendo 64 with Pokemon Stadium on it, and I bought these copies of Red and Blue from a market, and then copied the Pokemon over to Stadium, and then like restarted the game. And one of
Yeah.
the Pokemon that was, there wasn't many on it by the way either, but one of the Pokemon that was on it was a Mew, and whether or not it was a legitimate
Nice.
one I do not know, but the fact that I kind of saved it from this cartridge and then put it back on, I kind of consider
Yeah.
that to be mine.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You've gone out of your way to preserve that.
Mm.
And I think a lot of them using it was I don't know how easy it was to clone shit in the original games because I was a child. But I think the original games you could get a Mew by going to like a Toys R Us event,
Mm.
and like my parents were never going to pay me to anything like that.
Yeah.
But that's still pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um,
So I've had a Mew, and I have used a Mew in my adventures, but whether or not it was a legitimate one, I do not know. But I do
yeah,
know, as a little segue back in, that my Pidgey was legitimate because
yeah. I feel like you've got to be really committed to piracy to bother to fake a
yeah.
Pidgey.
Well, do you know what I think I probably did at some point, and I'll tell you why. Because on Gold and Silver, there was definitely a an option on the Game Shark to like have all the Pokemon that you encounter be shinies. So and I
Ah,
remember catching in the wild, like near like New Barktown. So like this gives you an idea of how unlegitimate this is. A shiny Charizard in the wild.
amazing,
Yeah. So
amazing.
like before when I was like, oh, I've never caught a shiny before. I have, but they don't count.
Yeah, yeah, they don't count.
Um,
Um,
but yes,
no.
Pidgey, like I say, I think is a decent Pokemon. Should we have a look at the decks?
Yeah, let's do it. I think Pidgey, yeah, solid early game Pokemon. Set the kind of bar for, the kind of flying types you encounter early on.
Okie doke. So we let's just check that's on. Yeah, yeah. So we've got Pidgey there. I tell you, I don't know if you do this when after you've like done the drawing, you like look at the actual picture and like see how correct you were. But when I saw this, I was like, none of my Pokemon that I drew this week look anything like the official artwork. Um, okay,
That's okay. Like I feel like showing the personality that they take on in your memory is cool.
well, thank you. Don't forget to big that up when you put it on the competition. Okay, doke. So we've got Pidgey. It is a common sight in forests and woods. It flaps its wings at ground level to kick up blinding sand. Um, tell you what, that's made me remember. So during the period of of like when I had my first Pidgey, um, the idea of sand attack was worthless to me.
Yeah. In the show, right? Sand attack will like blind someone and it will put an end to the whole battle. In the game, it's shit.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Uh,
was so disappointed when I tried to use sand attack thinking it was gonna like clinch it and the battle would be won. And actually sweet fuck all happened and then someone killed my Pidgey.
well, that's very much how I felt, and I felt like it's very much stacked against you. I feel like your Pidgey gets sand attacked, it won't be able to attack from that point on. You attack the
Yeah.
oh oh miraculously it critical hitted me again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So
No question whatsoever.
I'm thinking, come yellow, is this part of the anime? Is this the anime's influence that it's very docile? Because, like, is that from the fact that they've made Spearow the more like sinister one?
I feel like at this stage, it was probably pre-decided before the anime was written. But like, yeah, I think this is one that you can definitely see the influence of the character in the show because like those early episodes, um, there was a lot of Ash in that initial little bit on his own, not knowing what the fuck he was doing.
Mm.
Um, I feel like the next one kind of kind of implies that Pidgey's a little bit stronger than I expect because it sticks with the trying to avoid battles, but then, enemies are blown away by whirlwind when like how high a level does a Pidgey have to be to learn whirlwind? Because it doesn't get it before it evolves into Pidgeotto if you are raising
Well,
one.
let's find out. Let's find out the quick. Uh, oh, can it learn? Can it learn whirlwind? Move set. Anime only moves. TCG only moves. We may have to stick a pin in that
Yeah,
because that was not
it
something.
doesn't say. It just says. Oh, hang on. I don't know what you're looking at, but this. So in Generation 1, by leveling up, it's got Gust at level 1, Sand Attack at 5, Quick Attack at 12, Whirlwind at 19. So it only learns
Ah,
Whirlwind if you don't evolve it into Pidgeotto.
mm.
So
Oh,
that's, yeah,
that sounds like Stadium
that's
Professor
interesting.
probably had a vodka when.
Or maybe he's just got like a really old Pidgey that doesn't want to evolve, which is also fair.
Yeah,
And like, but maybe he's extrapolating to all Pidgeys something that only happens to the Pidgeys that don't want to evolve. And he's like, yeah. Pidgey can fuck shit up. And it's like, but only a Pidgey with the level of a Pidgeotto can fuck shit up.
yeah. And he could have put
Uh,
that. No wonder Professor Oak thinks Stadium Professor's a dick. Uh, this bit here about it usually hides in tall grass. Like that feels like just an excuse for them to put more Pidgeys in the game.
Yeah, maybe. Don't all Pokemon hide in the tall grass?
Yeah, apart from Combi
Yes.
and
Yeah.
Teddy Ursa. Is Teddy
I think
Ursa the one that comes to the if you smear honey on the tree?
I think there are a few that come if you smear honey on the tree, but you can still catch them in long grass depending on like what game you're playing and in which area.
Mm. Uh,
I mean, it's mostly about hiding in the grass and flapping up sand.
yeah,
Up
this.
until Ruby, where we get Pidgey has an extremely sharp sense of direction. It is capable of unerringly returning home to its nest, however far it may be removed from familiar surroundings, which I think is a fun extra detail.
No.
And then it goes back to doesn't like fighting, hides in the grass, forages bugs. Cool.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, with the anime. Well, do you know what? Right, weirdly, right, I had this in my head of being like, should I have Pidgey like trying to eat a worm that is like not a Pokemon, and then I was like, no. I mean, is there a worm Pokemon
Uh,
like an actual worm?
I mean, it depends what you classify as a worm because there are Diglett has been suggested in the chat. There's Orthworm, which is a newer one. So Generation 9 Pokemon, which is like a steel type. And it is a worm, but it's like a massive steel worm with like segmented metallic bits of body. Apart from that, I feel like everything that could be a worm Pokemon could also be a Caterpie, not a caterpillar.
Yeah, because
They're kind of like blurred. I think a lot of bugs are blurred into each other, if you know what I mean.
yeah, for me, a worm would have to be pink and like like no legs. Like for me, Diglett. As
Yeah.
much as I don't know what its underside looks like, for me, I've always imagined it as more of a mole.
I always thought of it as more of a mole. Like not as explicitly a mole as like Excadrill, but like I always thought of it as like a mole. But I think I can't really think apart from Orthworm, which is obviously a very new one, and also has some distinctions that make it not just any other bug. I do think that the early bug types that you meet that might be a worm are more like caterpillars.
Mm.
And I think that makes sense because then you've got the obvious transition of caterpillar, cocoon, something that flies. And that's the normal progression for a bug type you meet early on, as opposed to, I don't know, a worm not really evolving into anything. Worms just stay worms their whole lives.
Yeah, that would be
Unless you're just
you'd
going to get a
struggle.
worm that evolves into a bigger worm.
I don't. I mean, yeah.
Um,
What would you make? Like, or more worms? Like Magneton. Um,
yeah.
uh,
Ugh.
but you know, if it turns out that Diglett's got a big long body, I'll happily concede that
I
it is a
don't think
worm.
we want to get into I don't think we want to get into the internet theories of what Diglett is. Not today.
No, not
I'm
today.
gonna do some shots when we do the Diglett episode. I think I'm gonna need them.
Uh, well,
Eh, do a shot every time the internet says something disturbing about what Diglett might be. I will die.
yeah, I was gonna say we
Um,
cirrhosis of the liver, come Doug Trio.
yeah. But yeah, I think like in the early episodes of Pokemon where you first meet Pidgey, you do see like non-Pokemon
Mm.
animals. You see Pidgeys pecking at worms, and you
Yeah,
see like fish that aren't water type Pokemon. They're just fish.
yeah,
And you definitely see like them talking about food
yeah,
in a way that's like, what are you eating? Like what are these eggs from? Is that a Pokemon egg or is it an Execute? Have you
mm.
got actual chicken somewhere?
Yeah.
So I feel like this is one of those things that it's like we don't think too hard about it.
Yeah. But that was the thing, like, because like I've got a vivid memory of a Diglett eating like a worm out the ground, and that must be from a Pidgey eating a worm
Yeah,
out the ground.
Diglett.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if Diglett's just a bad lad. It just eats anything that it comes across. But yeah, I've got like a vivid memory of a Pidgey eating a worm out the ground, and I must have got that from the anime. Um,
Yeah.
and
They do show Pidgey scratching at the ground and pulling out worms, and that worm's got to be like an actual worm rather than a. Because like a Caterpie's nearly as big as a Pidgey. It's not eating the Caterpies.
yeah, do you think that there's like a Pokemon trainer out there who's just got a worm in a Pokeball because no one's told him that it's not an actual Pokemon?
I would love that. Because there's that episode where they're talking about I don't even remember the context, but like Jessie sends out her Ekans and they have a thing. It's like this look at this weasel's gonna eat it, and it's like but they don't have a weasel Pokemon. They were using an actual weasel in that bit, you know? So where'd that weasel come from? And where are the other weasels?
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I think we have to assume there are real worms.
Yeah, but I just love the idea of Pikachu, I choose you, and then followed by some trainer going, worm, I choose you, and then just a worm flopping around on the floor.
And immediately gets eaten by a Pidgey.
Yeah. Uh,
Um, I think like it's canon that like Pidgeotto eat Caterpie and things like that. There's that sort of
mm,
circle of life because obviously uh Ash tries to get his Caterpie to fight a Pidgeotto and gets shouted at.
mm,
But yeah, I think Pidgeys I mean either have our regurgitated Caterpie from a parent Pidgeotto or Pidgeot
mm,
is always an option, a gross option, but an option nonetheless.
mm.
Or real world worms.
Uh, and you know, it does raise a question: where does Pokemon end and where does Animal begin?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right, shall we head back
But
into
these
the
Pokedex
decks?
entries,
Yes.
I feel like they don't. I've had a little scroll down and they don't get much more diverse than what we've already seen. It's docile and prefers to avoid conflict, however, can ferociously strike back. Hides in tall grass, kicks up sands. Common in the grass, is docile, flaps up sand. Docile, avoids context, conflict, can strike back. Common in woods, kicks up sand. Avoids context, can strike. Fuck me. Avoid conflict, can strike back.
So
Sharp sense of direction again in Sapphire.
is
Um,
is the is the kind of implication then that the battles with Pidgey are you attacking them rather than the other way
I
around?
guess, yeah, it's gotta be. Um, if it's like, not disturbing anyone,
Yeah,
just chilling, doing its own thing, and then you appear out of nowhere and it feels threatened and gets you.
yeah. So I mean that almost makes us the bad guys.
Yeah, I mean we are.
Yeah,
We're like going into their home and catching them and then attacking them and leaving them dazed on the floor for their friends to find.
yeah. Presumably eat.
Yeah,
Do you think any?
yeah.
Do you think any Pokemon? Do you think that Spearow eat Pidgey?
I think Ekans eat Pidgey.
Uh,
And I feel like what would be a fun game mechanic is if you defeat enough Pidgey and leave them lying around, is Ekans start to appear. Like
oh,
how frequently a Pokemon appears depends on how much of their prey you've left lying around unconscious. I think that'd
oh,
be a fun mechanic to introduce.
yeah,
And they could do it. I think it would be a really fun way of establishing the relationships that exist within the natural wild Pokemon world.
mm,
I'd like that. I'd like to see that in future games.
yeah.
Why aren't Nintendo paying me?
Yes, I agree. I think that anyone who's watching or listening to this podcast, they should share this podcast as much as they can, specifically also to people who work at Nintendo, so that we can work at Nintendo eventually.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
that is. I want to be on the ideas team.
I want to be on the artwork team.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, so yes. Should we have a look through the Smogon rating then next?
Let's do it.
Which I think will probably be. I'm guessing this is going to be quite low.
Yeah.
Okay, so there they are. Um, the little cup. So again, that's like Pokemon that haven't evolved. I'm not surprised that they're in the little cup rather than like never used, because I feel like they are a kind of an all round. They're probably quite well known as like being a fairly decent Pokemon, and um, like they're quite popular as well.
Yeah. I think, yeah. I don't, it is not the one of the evolutionary line you're going to see doing competitive battling.
Mm. But yeah, I think they're doing all right. I'd be interested to see if, I mean, down the line, if Spearow is in the little cup or if they're in the never used bracket.
Yeah, yeah, that will be interesting. Tune in when you do that episode to find out.
Yes, there we go. I like this. We've got little hooks for all the future episodes. So should we do our Talking Trubbish rating for Pidgey?
Yeah.
I get the feeling that we're going to
What do you
be
think?
different on this one.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Go on. What's yours?
I'm going to give it a 6,
A 6.
which
All right.
I'm guessing you're thinking is too high.
Yeah, I was gonna go for a 4.
A
Because
4.
I like Pidgey, but every time I've had one on my team, it's been against my will. Like I don't set out to have a Pidgeot, you know? It's I'm like, oh, I'll try something different. I'll figure out something new. And then I don't. I just go with the Pidgey because it's there first. And I feel like the linear progression of the Pokemon games traps me into having a Pidgey that I don't really want.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Um, and I think it's also partly due to the fact that, in my opinion, it is a lot better than Spearow. Even though I've never really had a Spearow beyond catching it and sticking it in a box, whereas
Yeah.
you've had one. But I got the feeling that if I had one, it would have been a similar experience where I had it for a little while and then just eventually was like, well, why am I bothering with this? Rather than just either getting myself a Pidgey or waiting later on in the game and then getting myself like a Zapdos or a Moltres.
Yeah, I get that. I think I think Pidgey is a really solid first flying type, but even in its original game, there are better flying types.
Okay. Do you care to give any of them a little name drop?
You got Charizard, you've got all of the legendary birds. Um, you know, I think having those options, I know they're like later stage options, and like Pidgey's a good option for where it is, but if it wasn't for the fact that it appeared so early, I wouldn't bother with it.
Mm,
It's only I use Pidgey out of convenience.
yeah. Uh, I think it would. I think it would change up slightly if they, like. There's no real reason why they can't have Pidgey and Spearow, like basically on Route 2. I
Yeah.
mean, it might be a tiny bit confusing, but I think that if Spearow came earlier, you'd probably have a tiny bit more of a divide between those who like Pidgey and
Yeah,
those who like
I
Spearow.
think that's true. Because also, it's not like you just go Route 2 and then you can just pop over to the bit in Viridian City. You go Route 2 and then you go back down and then you go back up. So you've got all that additional time
Mm,
uh delivering those parcels and getting your Pokedex and your Pokeballs.
yeah,
You've got all that additional time bonding with the wild Pidgeys
yeah,
and Rattata. And I think that's why you end up with more people having a Raticate than like a Nidoking or Nidoqueen, because you get your Rattata first, even though Nidoking and Nidoqueen arguably have um a more interesting skill set
mm,
than a normal type.
yeah. Well, I don't. I feel like I may have to hand in my Pokemon badge right now, my trainer card. I've never had a Nidoking or a Nidoqueen, even though I'm aware that they're very good. You know, like beyond getting one and then just sticking it in
Yeah,
a
putting it in the
box.
box. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, it's possibly for the same reason because
yeah.
I just never saw it.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
should we go into the break?
Yeah, let's have a little break. I could do with getting another cup of tea.
Okay, doke. And then when
If
you're back, I'm gonna get myself a can of Coke because I don't want any teeth when I'm 60.
All right, well you have fun telling the good people at home what you're up to, and I will catch you in a minute.
Okay, doke. So I'm currently working on a thing called Comedy Lab, which I have been promoting over the last couple of weeks, and it's a attempt to try and kind of combine the fact that I do comedy and comedy performance, but I also did a PGCE during the lockdown. So I was like, how do I combine these? So I decided to come up with this company that teaches people how to do improv, stand up, and clowning. But there are other what's the word? There are other companies that do that. So I was like, well, how do I kind of make this my own? So I decided that I was going to kind of combine them all into a company called Comedy Lab, which is elements of clowning, elements of improv, and elements of stand up as a way of kind of boosting people's confidence and boosting people's presentation skills. So I've got the next one in July. I'm just going to put the link in the chat for anyone who fancies going on that. But I've been like writing up little posts and articles about how learning these skills can like improve your presentation skills and improve your mental health. And I also did an interview with Kirstie to promote it, which again I'm going to put in the chat. Let's just find that dead quick. And that was slightly more on the promotional end, but again I looked into how learning these things can like boost your presentation, boost your comedy skills, not comedy skills, but also kind of your mental health and how you're kind of feeling in terms of your confidence. So yeah, we put all that together, and I've been enjoying just kind of putting my thoughts out there, because eventually I would like to do a PhD in how comedy can affect people's mental health, because I think that is a really useful thing for people to know, and have like a bit more kind of scientific basis behind it. I'm struggling to. Oh, I'll tell you what, I'll find it on my Instagram. But yes, that's something that I'm doing in Manchester. But once I've moved down south, I'm intending on doing that. I'm intending on doing that in like London and Brighton eventually as well, which I think would be really nice to be able to do and kind of branch out. And I feel like there'd be hopefully a lot of people in London and down south who might be interested in a course like that. So that's the Blizzard link to the interview that I did about Comedy Lab. I was just telling people about Comedy Lab, Kirstie, which I'm
Nice. I've popped the link to your interview in the chat
fabulous.
so that people can have a little read of it.
Oh, God,
And
you're way more on it than I am. But yeah, that's the thing, that once I've moved down south, I'm looking at kind of branching out. In that I'd like to, like, I'm doing quite well with the Manchester places. So each course has only
Nice.
got 10 people on it, and I've done that as a way of being like, if there's 10 people, I can spend enough time like working with people like in depth.
Yeah.
I feel like anything more than 10 to 12 would dilute that a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that that it will also mean that I can kind of have like once I get to the point where there's like an overflow of people, I could put on like another event like further on down the line, and it'd be a really nice thing for me to hopefully be able to, if I'm living down south but I've got Comedy Lab running up in Manchester and down south, I've got like an excuse to go back up and like run Comedy
Yeah.
Lab and also see people, and then so like do that for maybe a week and then come back. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's what I'm hoping for with it. Right, I'm gonna go get myself a load of pop beverages. So if you wanna now tell everybody what you're up to, that'd be ace. And yes, Saf, yes, I'm moving down south in September, October time. just because I fancy, living near loads of cool people like yourself and Kirsty. Why wouldn't you?
Hmm.
Right, I shall be back in a moment's time.
Go for it, mate. Go get yourself a nice treat. I mean, I'm doing very little. I basically just do this. But you can catch both me and Tom on the next episode of Blizzard Comedy's Broadcast Avalanche, which is going to be next Monday, less than a week away. What I shall do is I shall pop the Facebook event in the group chat, and if you haven't RSVP'd, you can let us know that you're going to come and tune in, and you can watch us on Monday talking about the last 2 months of news because we didn't have an episode last month because we were going to do our best of episode, and then it took a long time to edit. So that's coming up this week, I believe. Assuming everything goes to plan, there'll be a couple of days before that comes up. And that's it. That's like the main thing I'm doing. Um, Apart from our next stream of this show, which we've got booked in, which is going to be on Monday, 10th of July. Now, um, normally I've put a link to the Facebook event to that one in the chat as well, so you can find out the details. RSVP. We're going to be talking about Raticate and Rattata because those are the next ones in the Pokédex. If you haven't figured out how we're doing this by now, um, I don't know what to say. I thought it was obvious. Uh, so normally we do make sure that these shows do not clash with other things that come under kind of our respective umbrellas. So Monday, 10th of July is not my first choice of date, because it is the same day as the next live Blizzard show. However, um, the beauty of this show is that we upload it later on and you can listen to it at a later date. So we figured those of you going to Blizzard, go ahead, go to Blizzard, have a smashing time. Um, we have got the brilliant Radu Isaac uh, headlining. He's very, very talented gentleman. We've had him on the show a few times before. He's fantastic. The link is currently blocked to patrons, but it will be live tomorrow. So if you are watching and want to go to that, I will pop a link in the thing, and you can do it tomorrow morning once I've unlocked it. But if you're not going to that, if you're not in Manchester or you're not in the mood for live comedy or whatever other very understandable reason you have for not going to Blizzard, we do not judge when people have other things to prioritize. You can watch the next Talking Trubbish. And if you are going to Blizzard, you can listen back to it at a later date. That is also fine. We appreciate all of you anyway. Those are the only things I've got coming up. I really hope Tom finds his Coke soon because I'm out of things. I'm not doing anything else. I just do those two things. And one of them I'm not even on very often. I just do the admin from like here in London. I never see anyone. And Johnny always tells me how lovely it is in the room and how validating it is to see everyone having such a lovely time. And I'm like, well, I don't get to experience that. Please, send me directly some validation. Thank you. Question for the break. Have you seen the trailers for the game Pal World? Weird sandbox Pokemon Gun. I haven't.
I have
Was that
also
in
not.
the was that in the that wasn't in the Nintendo Direct today because I haven't watched that yet. Or is this something completely different? Is this like one of those weird Facebook uh Facebook ads that are obviously a rip-off of something? Not a Nintendo thing. Okay. So I have Googled it and the first thing that comes up is Steam, so that's not a Nintendo thing. So it's in early access now. So it's still glitchy. Planned release 2024. I don't think I want to add it to my wish list. Pal World is a game about living a slow life with a mysterious creature's pal, or throwing yourselves into life and death battles with poachers. You can make pals fight, breed, help with farming, or work in factories. You can even sell them off or slaughter them to eat. That, however, is forbidden by law. Okay, okay. This sounds like dark, horrible Pokemon. I kind of, like, I kind of don't hate it. I'm a little bit morbidly curious about how it goes. I feel like it's not going to live up to my expectations based on how I am imagining it based on that very short description. However, um,
Um,
I like it's kind of got the overtones of like, you know, where they ask you at the end of Nugget Bridge, um, if you want to join Team Rocket, but you can't actually reply yes. And I always wanted it to break off into like two completely separate games. If you answered yes, you join Team Rocket and like you see how it goes. Um, that's what that's what I want it to be like, and I feel like it's not gonna be. Um, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It feels like it's gonna be. Oh fuck me. Oh no, that's a different thing. One of them definitely looks like a Piplup, and one of them looks like a Skarmory. I don't think they're doing a lot to make it not look like Pokemon. I think that one looks like an Eevee. Um, that looks like a Gyarados. That looks like a Charizard. Okay, so these all look like real Pokemon. That looks like an Electabuzz. So this is like not trying not to be a Pokemon ripoff, but oh, it's got guns. And I don't like the bit about making them work in factories. I don't know. I'm not surprised they got an artist who'd worked on Pokemon games, but I think they probably should have got one with a bit more what do I say? How do I call this? I say like a bit more sensitivity about plagiarism. But then again, maybe he was salty about Nintendo because like Nintendo's a bit of a cunt. So early access opens in January 2024.
well,
So
well, I shall presumably
ugh.
be living much closer to you, Kirsty, so you could come round mine or I could come round yours and we could stream it.
We'll do a little streaming sleepover and we'll both be horrified by this fucking game. We'll
Right,
do
it
like
is
a
on.
New Year in January sleepover and we'll just play this game overnight and everyone watching us can be fucking horrified. Shall I email them and see if we can get a review copy?
Yeah, yeah.
Get it for free, add it to my Steam so that we can play it together.
How's
We've
like?
got this.
Is it called actual Pokemon Gun?
No, it's called Pal World.
Ah, right. So I was gonna say like, how are they selling it? Like under that like banner.
I think I've seen some Facebook ads where it's just like, oh, why would you want to play Pokemon when you could play Pal World? And they all look like Pokemon ripoffs in the ad. And I assumed it was one of those like shitty mobile games. I didn't think it was going to be an all the way fully fleshed out game. Um, so we'll see. You should we'll keep an eye
Ah,
on that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, my love. Now I've got to remember my Steam password. Wonder what it is. When was the last time I logged into Steam?
I
Can we talk about Pidgeotto?
yeah. Let's do it. Okie doke. Um, so let me just change the screen over and then we will go into it. Right, Pidgeotto. Um,
Pidgeotto.
in my opinion, probably the most popular of this line because
Yeah,
Ash had one.
yeah. Like I Pidgeotto as a Pokemon to battle with is a very middle evolution issue. It's going to be the same as all the others. Like I've only got it because I want the final evolution or I want it in my decks. I do not have it because I actively want it. Like no one's like, yeah, I want a Pidgeotto. You're like, I'm getting a Pidgeotto to check it off my decks or because I want a Pidgeot. That's how it goes.
Yeah,
Now for um I think Pidgeotto's popularity is because Ash had one. And Ash's Pidgeotto stayed a Pidgeotto the whole time. It was a Pidgeotto when he caught it because he failed at the Pidgey. And it was like it stayed a Pidgeotto for the entire series and then was only a Pidgeot for like one episode before he abandoned it.
yeah,
So when you think about Like when you think about Ash's, say, Charizard, you think, oh, Ash had a Charmander, then a Charmeleon, then a Charizard. But when you think about Ash's Pidgeotto, Ash just had a Pidgeotto,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah, and
So,
I think it goes to speak to how popular that Pidgeotto is as well, because he abandons that. He abandons a whole bunch of Pokemon, and I feel like there's a much more of a groundswell of where was Pidgeot for, when it was like building up to the last episodes. There was much more of a we want
yeah.
to see Pidgeot again, um, versus we want to see his Primeape again, which is
Yeah.
there's a length of time difference between the two, but between him getting rid of the two, but the people who were like, oh, we want to see his Primeape again, was minuscule in comparison to we want to see his Pidgeot. We need Pidgeot. We need Butterfree. We need to see them two before he hangs it up.
Yeah. I definitely see that.
I think
Um,
I think Pidgeotto is. I mean, we'll probably go into it a little bit more on the Pidgeot episode. Um, Again, is probably part of that. The frustrations that people have with Ash, in that, you know, if he'd have kept that Pidgeot, his team would have been much more powerful. And him abandoning it was
true.
probably the beginning of
True,
him
but it wasn't
abandoning.
abandoned. It chose to leave. Like this is the thing. I think, and again, we'll finish this talking in the Pidgeot episode. But like, Ash knows when he's not right for a Pokemon, and I think that's one of the more moving and interesting parts of Ash as a trainer. Can
Uh,
you even hear me?
yes, I can hear you. I was just.
Okay, good, because my
Okay.
thing had frozen that whole time, and I had no idea if I was coming through.
Yes,
Um,
your image has been freezing a little bit, but the audio's been coming through fine.
okay,
Um,
good. Yeah, I think the way that Ash's Pokemon leave, they leave in a respectful way on their terms. And I think that's what's important about the way that Ash chooses to let his Pokemon go on to the next stage of their development with someone better suited to them or not
mm,
or whatever. But like, I think I think especially in the early episodes and the later episodes, actually, all of the episodes of Pokemon that require that have an abandoned Pokemon, all the abandoned Pokemon miss their trainer, but Ash's Pokemon miss their trainer but choose to leave.
mm,
Like they're not abandoned. And I think it would be nice for them to go back and see Pidgeot and see how well it's looking after all of its adopted babies.
yeah. I think as well that there's probably an element of like, again, most trainers probably had a Pidgeot and know how decent it is. So I think
Yeah.
there was a certain element of them wanting to kind of um, will Pidgeotto into evolving in order to kind of help Ash out a little bit. But I mean, I like Pidgeotto's like character. I feel like in his early team, everyone's got their kind of like role, and I feel like
Yep.
Pidgeotto's the kind of probably the strongest Pokemon that he's got early on in terms, before
Yes.
Charizard. But
Yes.
they're not a dick about it like Charizard.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And I think Pidgeotto comes in handy as well, having a Pokemon that can fly, having a Pokemon that can like go ahead and scout things and fly back quickly. That's the thing that it does a lot.
Mm.
Its Whirlwind comes in handy a few times. Like I remember it being a very useful Pokemon, even if it's not always used in battle.
Yeah.
Um, like I'm I feel like he didn't use it against Erica, and I feel like that was a thing I thought was weird because he
He
sent
he don't understand.
yeah.
He don't understand the typing and stuff, does he?
He doesn't. He doesn't. He used it against Misty, didn't he? At one point.
Um, well, he wanted to, but Pikachu didn't want to. Didn't want to.
Yeah, no, Pikachu didn't want to fight, so he used Butterfree and Pidgeotto because those are the Pokemon he had at the time.
I think so. Um,
Yeah, and the star you fucked up.
well, if I remember correctly, they used the it's like um, the water types were going into the water to wash off like the sleep powders and stuff. Uh,
Yeah, off the Butterfree.
yeah. Um, so
And appear out of nowhere and chop.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Leap out of the water and yeah.
so I've been. I don't know about you, but I kind of pre-plan some of the stuff that we're going to do in these episodes,
All right.
and I've been wearing this hat intentionally. Partly because I think it. I mean, I like a beret anyway, um, and I feel like the Generation 4 beret is a underrated Pokemon look. But I saw a meme in the run up to this episode, which is that everyone's got hair like Pidgeotto, and I unfortunately also do.
All right. Yeah, no, I see it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that that is like actually a thing of like, um, everyone, everyone in 2023 seems to have hair that's like Pidgeotto.
I mean, I've seen that meme going around a little while. I think the whole like undercut pointy top has been a in fashion for quite some time. I don't think it's that new, but yeah.
Well,
I would appreciate seeing more people add the pink hair to it though. I think that would be very cool. Everyone doing their basic like fade, short back and sides, but with a fade and scruffy on top, but pink.
yeah. Well, I mean, I've had this type of hair for some time now, and I have been known to dye it in the past. And I feel like I will be dyeing my hair at some point in the future again because I've started to get greys, and it's oh, I hate it. I
Oh.
hate it so much. But the last time I had my hair like dyed, right, I was doing a day in a school. This was like before I'd done my like teacher training and all that kind of stuff, and um, I remember being in this classroom with my like blonde dyed on the top and like scraped back. And
Yeah.
this was the day that it put me off being in schools for ages. This because I remember like I was looking at this classroom, and then I looked away and then I looked back, and within that time a child had started eating his tie, and had gotten all the way up to the knot, and I was like, what is this like utter feral child that I've been put in front of? Um, but anyway, what I'm like linking back to is I would like to have the more colourful hair, but I'm
Mm.
I'm now in a position where I think it would the stuff I have to do in the daytime, at least for now until I get Comedy Lab up and running properly.
Yeah.
Uh, I feel like I've got to be more conservative with my hair choices. But when I'm running Comedy Lab full time, believe me, mate, I will go back to the pink. I will go back to the reds and the blues. When I'm not having to deal with children eating ties.
Yes,
Ridiculous.
that definitely sounds like a better place to be in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got that as a comparison now. In one hand, I've got, am I having to look at someone eating a tie? And if the answer's no, I know I'm doing better with my life.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Um, so yeah, so that was that's like become a meme. Pidgeotto's like ruffled hair on the top has become a
Little
meme.
fuck boy hair.
Yeah, well, I mean that's very much me. That's why I took the beret on. But I seem to recall as well, right, when I had a Pidgeotto, um, like feeling like the back of its hair sprite looked a bit odd, like in the.
Yeah. I think a lot of Gen 1 sprites looked odd from the back.
Mm,
They were still figuring it out, I think.
yeah, like they just basically do. They look like they all just look like Justin Bieber from behind. Um,
Well,
oh, go on.
how much attention have you been paying to what Justin Bieber looks like from behind?
Wow, this it's an obsession at this point. Uh, I can't go to sleep without going right. I need to cuddle up to a pillow and imagine the back of Justin Bieber stroke a Pidgeotto's head. Um, so, my question. This was something else I was going to mention. I should probably hold this off until the Pharaoh episode, right? But I feel like we're going to probably mention it in the next one in the Rattata Raticate episode. But
Yeah.
I I feel like a lot of second stage evolutions feel like a little bit disappointing, even when like the second stage is the final stage. Um, and I wonder if Spearow would be like considered like a little bit better if there was like a third stage to it.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I do think that's possible because I feel like if it's got, I think the middle evolutions often feel incomplete, but then if it's only got a two-stage evolution, unless it puts off evolving until it's at a really high level, it can end up um like they kind of have to keep the stats a bit lower so that they can fight the middle evolutions comfortably.
Mm.
And I think that kind of factors into it. Like they're thinking a lot about stat matchups, rather than, is this second evolution really has it got the chops to go through it? And I think in the first generation, they noticed that because like Brock has an Onyx, and then people in the Elite Four have Onyxes as well. Like Bruno has an Onyx. I think it's Bruno in the first gen. Um, and it's like, well, that Onyx's base stats aren't going to change. So actually, having the first gym and one of the final boss battles you do have an Onyx means that if you've evolved the Pokemon that got that first Onyx, like you're going to stomp it so bad. Which is I think why obviously they introduced Steelix and things like that, and how Pokemon that don't evolve at all are like the ones I just don't want on my team.
Mm. Yeah, like even ones that I know are like objectively supposed to be good, like it's very rare
Yeah,
that I'll have a Snorlax on this, even though I know that they've added
yeah,
another one in there. Like I know they added Munchlax in there, but yeah, like for me, it's like if it's not a third stage evolution or a
don't want it.
legendary, it's yeah,
Yeah,
it's difficult to like justify having it on there.
yeah. Like the third stage evolutions and legendaries have the best stats. Simple as that.
It's like Pidgeotto, I know is gonna eventually evolve into a Pidgeot. Pharaoh is Pharaoh
It's
now.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think also as you're going through the story, if you are conscious of filling up the Pokedex, you'll be like, oh, I've evolved my Spearow. I can put my Fearow away and have this slot to level up something else. If
Yeah.
you've evolved your Pidgey into a Pidgeotto, you've got to keep it with you a bit longer. And by the time it's evolved into a Pidgeot, you've got half your badges, and it's probably a staple of your team, whether you wanted it to be or not. Like if you're just going to keep it until it evolves, you're keeping it for a longer time.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it easier to like slip into your team, even though you plan on dumping it. And then you're like, actually, this is now a higher level than the wild Pokemon I can catch around here. I'm actually better off keeping it with me.
Mm.
And I think that goes for like, because it doesn't like, I think that goes for Pidgeotto in particular, because the other triple evolutions you catch at the same time as you catch Pidgey, Caterpie and Weedle, which are in their final evolutions by level 10, and then Nidoran, male and female, which evolve into Nidorino and Nidorina later
Mm.
than Pidgey evolves into Pidgeotto. But once they've evolved, you can just moonstone them straight into the final evolution. You
Yeah.
don't have to wait around. If you are just looking to fill up your Pokedex, you can do that as soon as possible.
Mm.
And then apart from that, if you exclude the kind of baby Pokemon and additional evolutions that were introduced in later games, there's not another free stage evolution for like a little while.
Mm.
Unless like I'm not counting Geodude because you have to trade Graveler,
Yeah,
and if you don't have friends, that's not an option.
yeah.
But then yeah, the rest are all like, Zubat and Golbat, two stage. Um Jigglypuff, Wigglytuff, Clefairy, Clefable, Ekans, Arbok. They're all two stage that you meet at that point. Parasect, you get them in Mount Moon. Sandshrew, Slandslash, you meet at the same place as Ekans and Arbok.
Mm.
Mankey and Primate, you get first. Like, it's a long time before you meet another free stage Pokemon.
Yeah,
Probably Abra. But even then, you've got to trade it.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, at least early on they're very rare, aren't they?
Yeah. So it's really easy for Pidgeotto to fall into that place on your team because you've got to, if even if you just want to check it off in your deck, you've got to keep it on your team for longer.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my point. I took forever to say it, but that's my point.
So before we go into the Pokedex as well, I thought it's just popped in my head, but I've had it over the years. Um, in my opinion, Pidgeotto should be the name of the final evolution.
All right.
Yeah, I think Pidgeotto, and then Pidgeot. It's for me that feels like an anticlimactic final evolution name.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it makes sense because it gets more streamlined
Okay,
in a way.
and
I don't know.
I think that's
I
a
don't
fair.
mind it. I'm not disagreeing necessarily, but I don't mind it.
Yeah. But yes, for me, um, as much as I've had a Pidgey and a Pidgeot and a Pidgeotto as my main, uh, I feel like this is probably the case for most people. Uh, I'd say probably 99% of people, if not 100% of people, when they think of Pidgeotto, they think of Ash's Pidgeotto rather than any Pidgeotto that they've spent time with.
So, very briefly going back to the point I was just making about how long it is before you meet another three stage evolution.
Mm.
I have just had a quick scroll through the Pokedex,
Yeah,
and every single three stage evolution, the second evolution is either a stone or a trade for the entire Pokedex up until Dratini.
wow.
Dratini is the next Pokemon you can catch. So there are only in a game where you're not trading three Pokemon that you can level up into its final evolution for three stages, and that's your starter, assuming you only get one and don't trade in one of the other
Yeah,
two. Pidgey to Pidgeot, and then Dratini to Dragonite. All of the other street three stage evolutions in the game are a stone or a trade,
wow.
and so that will be um obviously Nidorino and Nidorina to Nidoqueen and Nidoking.
Yeah,
Gloom to Vileplume, Weeping Bell to Victory Bell, Kadabra trades to Alakazam, Machoke trades to Machamp,
mm,
Graveler trades to Golem,
yeah,
uh, Haunter trades to
yeah.
Gengar, and that's all of the Pokemon that evolve twice until you get true Dratini.
Wow.
Huh. I
Yeah,
didn't realize it was that rare
yeah,
until I checked it because I was thinking about it and then I was like, actually, I want to check this because I sort of assume most Pokemon evolve via leveling up, but only once. And then you've got to do something weird,
wow.
with the exception of Pidgeotto and Dragonair, and you start a middle evolution.
Well, I mean, that's probably another reason why, like what you say, that Pidgey ends up probably falling into people's teams. You know, because you can get that third stage relatively easy.
Yeah, yeah, you don't have to trade anything, you don't have to find a stone.
Yeah,
And in the first generation, that can be tricky.
yeah, and pre-internet as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I almost feel like I'm cheating a little bit, but sometimes I'll like have a Pokemon with me for a while, and I'll be like, look, I need to either work out how to evolve this or just bin it off.
Yeah.
And then end
Yeah,
up doing
I
some
get that.
googling.
So here is the thing. I am not afraid to Google how to evolve a Pokemon. And I should tell you for why. The reason is when I was a kid, obviously I didn't have the internet, but what I did have was one of my relatives bought me for Christmas a little book called the Handheld Pokédex. And it was a book maybe about the size of a DVD case. It wasn't very thick. And what it had a little summary at the beginning that was like Professor Oak saying, "Welcome to the world of Pokemon."
Yeah.
And then what it had was just one page for every Pokemon where it told you, it had a picture of them, their name, where to find it, how they evolved, and their special moves. So kind of literally kind of like a Pokedex, but with all that additional information. So I actually never needed to figure out how Pokemon evolved. I already had that information because I read that book a lot
Mm.
without like I carried that book around with me even when I wasn't playing the Pokemon games. I was a weird obsessive child, probably neurodivergent, but still. Like I just carried that book around everywhere with me wherever I went. And if I wasn't reading something else, I would sit and just refresh my memory of like how Pokemon evolved and what their special skills were. So looking back, I actually never went through the process of having to figure out by myself how a Pokemon evolved, if it was a weird, unusual way. Um, so I ain't starting now. I'm 30 years old. I've got to go to work. Like,
Yeah. But I mean,
unfortunately, I have boring shit to do.
mm,
I can't spend all of my free time figuring out how Pokemon evolve for funsies.
mm,
I have bills to pay and other such bullshit.
yeah. I mean, I had the the guide back in the day. I don't know if it was the official one
Yeah.
or not, but I had the guide. Um, but yeah, I'm the same way. It's like I mean, on the stream that I've been doing occasionally on this channel for Violet, I've had a gimme ghoul, and I was like, oh, this seems like quite cool, like this gold ghost Pokemon. I was like, oh,
Yep.
I'll keep this about, see what it evolves into, and then I was like, oh, I had it for like X amount of levels. I was like, how do I get this to evolve? And I googled it, and it was like, you've got to collect like 100 coins. And I was like, I ain't got time for that. Right
Yeah.
in the box you go.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, I was gonna say something and I've forgotten it now. I've
But yeah,
forgotten it already.
but yeah, but honestly, the things they expect you to do with.
Right. So when I got Pormy, Pormo, whichever one it is that's the middle one. So that one's in obviously the new game,
Yeah,
Scarlet and Violet. And you get and it's the Pikachu of the generation. It's a little cute mouse that does electric. And it's also fighting. And I originally wasn't going to have it because I got Quaxley, and Quaxley evolves into a water fighting. I didn't want too many fighting types on my team
mm,
because I don't think fighting is a great type. It's not one of my favorites, one of my go-to
yeah,
Pokemon types to have on my team.
yeah,
Um, so I caught the Pawmi
yeah,
and it evolves. So the first evolution evolves just regularly leveling up. And then the second one, it has to do a certain number of steps outside its Pokeball.
yeah.
Now I was walking around with this thing up until it was like level 60, and I'm like, when's this cunt going to evolve? And it's consecutive steps outside of its Pokeball. It's not accumulated steps outside of its Pokeball, right?
Right.
And so I was just running around with this thing, getting it to fight everything on its own without me having any kind of like involvement in the fight
Mm,
and just me not really doing anything, running around like, when is this thing going to happen? But if you get too far away from it, it zips back into its Pokeball without you telling it to, which
oh.
reset the counter. And it's like, so how am I supposed to do this in such a way that you are gonna not just jump back into your Pokeball whenever I'm not paying attention? Like, how many steps fucking count?
Mm,
Um, and so I had it out as often as possible. It got up to like level 60 something, and I was like, well, this prick ain't evolving. Maybe I'll just stop it. But at that point, because it was level 60, it was really quite powerful. It had some really good moves, so I was actually using it.
mm,
And then I was sort of like checking, and I was like, right, so what if I just run round in circles and it doesn't engage with anything? Will it eventually evolve? And that is exactly what happened. I just ran around in circles for like 20 minutes, and then the little cunt evolved. And I was like, I almost don't want this now.
Yeah,
That fuck you.
yeah. Well,
Like it's more likely to evolve if I'm not playing the game.
yeah.
Because if I'm engaged with like where I'm going, I'm gonna jump over a ledge or bump into a thing and then it's gonna jump back into its Pokeball. And if I'm just going around in circles, not paying attention, it'll evolve.
Mm. I had a similar thing with Vikavolt,
Oh
which
yeah.
was a charger bug, and I believe so. I've skipped the uh, uh, the 3DS generation. Like I intend to play it at some point, but like because I just didn't have didn't have a 3DS for a long period of time. It just kind of passed me by, and then eventually I was like, well, I'll just get a Switch. Um, but I believe Vikavolt comes in one of the 3DS generations, and it's like you evolve it at like you know how like Leafeons like you've got to like evolve it near a special rock that says oh it's cool and breezy at this rock. It's like yeah,
Yeah.
it's like similar for Vikavolt where I think you've got to like get it like near like a power station or whatever. But
Yeah.
in Galar it doesn't have that. So you had to like do this like whatever it was, this kind of like round the houses way of getting it to evolve. And again, by this point, I'd like it was like level 55, and then it evolved into like Vikavolt, and I was like, this is absolutely. It just became my main like that. I
Nice.
don't know if that happened with the Pokemon that you evolved.
Yeah, kind of. But I was already using it pretty consistently. Because I don't know, I don't think I found an electric type that I liked. And I didn't, and also like my Quaquaval didn't have a lot of amazing fighting moves. It had some really good water moves, but not loads of great fighting moves. So I actually quite appreciated Pormo's moveset by the time it fully evolved.
Um, I've
Um,
just googled how you get it to evolve, right? And you know how I built it up as like some bullshit thing that you got to do. You just had to give it a Thunderstone, but but I'm sure you had to get it to do something like worse than that in like the previous game. Yeah, there's like a magnetic field in like one of the other games.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, like how you can get a Glaceon with an Ice Stone now, and that was not how you did it to begin with.
mm,
Yeah, no, I feel you.
yeah. So should we
But
answer?
basically, we are grateful that Pidgeotto evolves by leveling, is what we've taken half an hour to say.
Yes. God.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Right. I go into each one of these being like, this is going to be 10 minutes, and then we find a way of
Yeah, and then
digressing.
we go off on a million tangents trying to make a really basic, tiny point
Yeah. So you
because
say
of who we are as people.
so you say you think we might both be neurodivergent.
I don't think that's going to surprise anyone, fella.
Right, let's go into the dex entries.
Let's
So
do
that
it.
that there is so the image. Like I'm looking at that image now and being like, your picture that you did for the competition is like so good. Like it's basically
I feel
the
like
official
I
art.
feel like that's probably the artwork I remembered, and like I kind of just sort of tacked on a an action scene.
You
Like
tacked
I
on
feel like
a big bear
I
belly.
thought I was remembering it from the show, and then looking at this, I feel like I probably just remember it from the artwork.
Honestly, I was very impressed.
Thank you.
But it definitely needed a bear belly, in my opinion.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, get Ken Sugimori on that. Although to be fair, I feel like he did bigger, chunkier Pokemon than the later
Yeah,
revisions.
he did do, the chunky boys.
Right, here we go. Let's have a look and see what Professor Oak's got for us. Very protective of its sprawling territorial area, this Pokemon will fiercely peck at any intruder. Um,
I mean, that tracks. That tracks with Ash's Pidgeotto going back to protect its friends.
um, it does make me go. really, if this was like, if the Pokemon world was like the real world, you should encounter Pidgeotos on Route 2.
Yeah, and Pidgeots.
Yeah.
Like, and I think they rectified that a little bit in the Let's Go games, where like you can catch um Bulbasaur, Butterfree, and Beedrill in Viridian Forest. And you can catch Pidgeotos really low level as well.
Mm.
In I don't think Route 2, but like quite early on, before you're at Mount Moon,
Mm.
which you don't get in the original games. You didn't see them wild until you nearly at Fuchsia City. Um, but I think that was a bit more. I think it was trying to be a bit more kind of true to what the real world is like, where you get like the adults with the
Mm.
babies. And so you ended up like catching, I catching like a fully evolved Clefable already in Mount Moon out of Waste of Moonstone. I
Mm.
quite liked that
Yeah.
from a catching perspective rather than like a training perspective. I get why they made the choices they chose
Mm.
for the original games, but I did like that they tried it to see how it would go with Let's Go, Eevee, and Pikachu.
Yeah. And I think that like, in the newer games, that's the thing that I like. The roaming Pokemon is the thing that I like enjoy the most. Like being
Yeah,
able
me
to
too.
like decide what it is that I want to like catch. I probably wouldn't have come across that like shiny oddish if it weren't under that circumstances. Like for me to be able to go, is that
Yeah.
shiny oddish, and then actively go, that's what I'm going to go towards. So yeah, so I like all that kind of stuff, and I like the fact that they like you mentioned the Bulbasaur. Like I like the fact that they've kind of made the starters not quite as like
Yeah.
constricted.
Like Bulbasaur has a very low spawn rate, but it's there.
Mm.
What I liked a bit less is that they just give you a Squirtle, a Bulbasaur, and a Charmander. Like they all appear in the wild, but with a low spawn rate. But then there are trainers before the third gym
Mm.
who will just give you a Bulbasaur, a Charmander, and a Squirtle,
Mm.
and it's very easy to do the exact Ash Ketchum team
Yeah.
when that happens because then you've got your starter, and then you've got your Pidgeotto, which evolves via leveling, and you've got
Mm.
the three starters that evolve via leveling,
Mm.
and you've got your Space for your Dratini
Yeah.
when you're ready for your final one that evolves via leveling. Like you don't have to put a lot of thought into the team to really, really smash that game.
No. No. I mean that's kind of one of the main criticisms against it, isn't it? That it's like it's a tiny
Very
bit too
easy.
easy. But on the
I
flip.
mean, they were trying to do something else. They were trying to experiment with like the catching mechanic,
Mm.
which I liked, but because you can't re-battle um trainers,
Mm.
literally I stopped playing it because like I ran out of Pokeballs and then didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
I couldn't level up my Pokemon without more Pokeballs because that's the only thing you can battle, and I couldn't get more money because I didn't have any other trainers to battle.
Oh,
You
so
know?
was that like late on in the game?
Yeah, yeah. This is after the Elite Four, but like I still had like I hadn't seen a Farfetch'd, but
Yeah.
I had no Pokeballs and had no way of getting more Pokeballs.
So can you not re-battle the Elite Four?
I think so, but like I didn't want to. I didn't go, I just wanted enough money for some more Pokeballs. I didn't want like I ended up going back and going around all the places where like pearls respawn
Mm.
and like getting money that way. But even then you have to wait for the next day to go by and I'm like, I'll be fucked.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Pidgeotto's Pokedex entries, the first couple are pretty similar.
Yeah.
Full of vitality, flies around its large territory in search of prey, builds its nest in the center of its large territory, powerful talons to swiftly snatch prey, all pretty
Can
standard.
I point out that obviously Stadium Professor
Yeah, it's got
probably
to mix it up a little bit.
Stadium Professor probably would agree with my drawing with the powerful talons, catching some prey.
Powerful.
Uh, I mean, Stadium Professor, I'm sure that if he had more than one line, he'd have put in also has big tits. Pidgeotto.
Big titty talons. Gold has highlighted its vision, which I guess makes sense if it's flying very high.
Mm? Yeah, and
Um,
that's similar to real life. You know, it's well known that like
yeah,
eagles and stuff have like decent vision.
yeah. Silver goes on, it immobilizes its prey using well-developed claws, so back to its tiddy
Yeah,
talons.
the titties.
Then
Titties.
carries the prey more than 60 miles to its nest. Now
Oh, we
here
get.
is where we get our first instance of dick swinging
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
But also, I do feel like it kind of ties into what the Pokedex entries that were like, Pidgey has a really good homing instinct. No matter how far away you take it, it always gets back to its nest. And I think that ties in because then you've got Pidgey learning the way back to the nest no matter what, and then Pidgeotto using that skill to feed everyone. I think that's quite.
Mm.
I don't know if they thought that far through or if I'm extrapolating, but I think that works.
I'm just googling what is
Crystal.
60 miles away from like London.
Okay,
Uh, just to
so
see if that's like a big dick swing or not too.
big dick
Pla-
swing.
Places around 60 kilometres. That's not what I asked for. What's 60 miles in kilometres? In km. Right, 96 kilometres. Now you know for a fact that if this had been like written by like a European developer, that would have been over 100 kilometers. Right. So 100 km from London. Okay, so let's see if you feel like this is impressive, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's basically said. So if you saw a Pidgey picking up a worm right now,
Yeah.
and someone told you, like Stadium Professor, no, Silver Professor said to you, do you know what, right? Do you know what's even more impressive than its big titties and its big talons? It's carrying
Yeah.
that Caterpie away to Stevenage. Would you be impressed?
Oh, I guess. Yeah. Because like I'd get a train to Stevenage. I mean, I wouldn't because I don't really want to go to Stevenage, but like,
What about Sevenoaks, which is also around 60 kilometres away?
uh, yeah.
High Wycombe.
I mean, like, again, actually, I could cycle to High Wycombe, I reckon. That's got a better infrastructure to get there than London to Stevenage, isn't
Well, this is good to know that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the
it?
infrastructure down there is like. Um, but
Yeah.
but that gives you an idea of some of the places where a Pidgeotto could go if you saw it eat a worm in front of you and then carry it off. Um, so we've got here, it slowly flies in a circular pattern, all the while keeping a sharp lookout for prey. Um, I
I
wish.
think that matches with what Ashes did.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I think it was often used as a lookout,
yeah,
and it makes
100%.
sense. Yeah, I think that ties into the show pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
Um,
More stuff about vision. Um, um, right, keeps on going, but
Patrolling its living
yeah.
space. If its territory is violated, it shows no mercy in thoroughly punishing the foe. Again, ties into Ash's one.
Yeah.
Um, Fire Red. I don't know if this is something that you had in the back of your mind when you were drawing your Pidgey in
Mm.
its nest. But Fire Red says of Pidgeotto, the claws on its feet are well developed. It can carry prey such as Execute to its nest over 60 miles away, and you drew yours eating an Execute.
Yeah, do you know what?
How? How? Wait, no. How does it have two claws and carries an Execute that's made up of six eggs? They are not attached.
Well, I mean, not to be pedantic, but I've only drawn 4 executes, so presumably it has eaten 2. um, but I mean, is the implication there is that execute there can be like more or less execute than is traditionally depicted?
I guess we'll find out when we get to our Execute
Mm.
episode, won't we? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but now we now know that is canon that Pidgeotto eats execute.
Execute.
Like, and
Yeah.
presumably as well, right? That it like smashes open the shell and like it eats the innards, whilst it is just screaming as it's slowly dying,
Yeah.
going, "Please kill me."
So I'm gonna get distracted by execute if we don't move on, and I want to save some of what I'm sure my initial thoughts will be for the execute episode. So, protective of its territory, flies over a wide territory, outstanding vision, flies high, renders prey immobile using well-developed claws, then carries it more than 60 miles to its nest. It's in the repetitive bit
Yeah,
now. Wide territory, developed claws, can carry prey such as execute to its
yeah.
nest over 60 miles away.
They really didn't
Please
like
tell me
execute.
how.
They,
Please tell me how it can pick up 6 eggs that are not connected. Do they like come in their little like egg box?
yeah, maybe they did. There we go.
Maybe.
There's something there we go. If anyone's watching, send us a picture of some execute in an egg
Of
box,
a Pidgeotto at the shop buying a 6 pack of execute.
and maybe some Miltank milk.
Some moo milk. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So yeah. The rest is all just more of the same. Large territory, patrols its living space. Sharp claws, sharp claws. All done.
yeah, I like the fact that they decided that they were like, no, it's execute. Let's put that in multiple times.
Yeah.
It
Like even though it was canon in the anime that it eats cat pee, they were like, no, it goes out of its way. It flies from wherever the fuck it is, all the way to wherever, all to the safari zone where you meet and execute. And it eats the fucking execute out of the safari zone because that's where you get it in the games.
yeah, and presumably it because it keeps on going on about how strong the talons are. Just has it and then eats its as the Pokedex would call them innards.
Yeah, eats the innards,
The
eats
innards.
the eggy innards.
Right. Should we have a look at the old Smogon?
Let's do it.
Right, here we go. So there they are, and they're actually in not frequently. I think that's what it stands for. Not frequently. Not fully evolved. So that's in the not fully evolved. I feel like it from the looks of things, it's got like decent stats at this point.
Yeah. For a middle evolution, it's gonna be in use,
Yeah,
I think. So it makes sense for it to be fairly well developed. Like we said, it slots very comfortably into a team.
yeah. Um, and I think because of Fly, there's probably little chance of this dropping out. Like I don't know about you, but I feel like I've had teams in the past where I've had two flying types on and kind of kept a Pidgeotto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Like my little avatar we've got here is a bird keeper because I really like the option of flying types. I think
Mm,
there are lots of good ones. As in our header, my go-to flying partner is a Crobat.
yeah.
But like if I was to have like a flying type gym, even then, if I was to have a gym, it would be flying type.
Yeah.
But really, I think it would be like bats
Yeah.
because I really like having Gliscor on my team because having a flying ground type is really fucking cool.
Mm,
And also I like Noivern. I think Noivern is a dope Pokemon. So if I were to structure a team based on a type, it would
yeah.
be that because I think flying is a really good secondary type
Yeah.
or a really good half of a dual type. But like as I said before, the reason I steer clear of Pidgeotto and its ilk is because its other half is normal, and I don't like having a normal type on my team. I think they suck.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not so keen. But I mean, to echo what you're saying, I really like Noivern. In the trading card game, my Noivern deck is currently unbeaten. Because it is,
Oh,
and you may be pleased to hear it's got It's got a whole bunch of Crobats in there and all. So I very much agree with you that that is a good combination. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that the thing that's going against Pidgey is that it is normal flying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
normal type's not amazing. Uh,
I think having normal as a dual type is pointless. Oh, it's half something fun and then half something that makes it weak to fighting
yeah,
types, but
and
otherwise has no benefit. It's not super effective against anything.
this might be controversial, but I feel like almost like I almost feel like flying type is almost like it's very close to normal type.
It is very close. It's literally just got some wings. It's normal type with wings.
Yeah, it's
Like, here's the thing, unless it is a bug or a bat or it's poisonous or it catches fire or something like that. Like, you could say of pretty much all flying types, they're also normal.
yeah,
And I think you could go so far as to say everything that doesn't have a dual type could be half normal. I don't understand why you'd make something half normal.
yeah,
Doesn't make sense to me.
yeah. No, I agree, and that's the only thing that I think is holding for me. It's holding this back, but it's like it's odd in that like as I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I would make it pure flying type. I almost feel like that's almost worse. But like because they've gone so far down the route of kind of reality at this point, it's basically a
Yeah.
pigeon. A sparrow is basically a sparrow. Like
Yeah.
like I can't think of another type that you would put with the Pidgey line.
Yeah.
Like I mean I don't know if they updated it, but at least with like the sparrow type you could stick like dark in there, because of its.
Yeah.
Um,
Sparrow would have been a cool part dark type.
mm, but with the Pidgey line, because of how far down that kind of route that they went down, it's like I don't know what else you do with it,
Mm.
and to make it a pure flying type almost feels like a waste.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and I do like flying types. Like I do like flying. As much as I was like flying types, almost like normal type. They they've got they've got like capability over fighting type, isn't it? Or are they weak
Yeah.
to fighting type?
Flying is strong against fighting. Normal is weak against fighting. So in Gen 1, Pidgey's line, being single type because everything was single type, had an advantage over fighting types. And then once its dual typing was introduced, that got diminished.
Ah, well,
And that's like the one thing it's good against. That and grass and bug.
yeah.
It's still strong against grass and bug, but now it's less good against fighting.
Well, should we give it our rating?
Let's do our rating.
Which again, I feel like we're gonna be off on. Because I
All
gave
right.
Pidgey a 6, I feel like
Yeah.
I'm gonna give Pidgeotto a 7.
Okay. I think I did the same thing. I want to give Pidgeotto a 5 because again, I don't think you have Pidgeot on your team because you want a Pidgeotto. You have Pidgeot on your team because you want a Pidgeot.
Mm,
You just tolerate it while it's in the middle stage. But I feel like it does get more of a boon than Pidgey because of the role it played in the show. So I feel like there are more positive memories attached to it.
yeah, and I'm even looking at that animation now, and I'm just a bit like it does feel a bit underwhelming at this point.
Yeah, well, it ain't fully cooked yet. It's got one more to go.
Yeah. Right. Well, on that note, should we go into the break?
Let's do it. Let's
Fabulous.
do it.
Um,
Go into a little break. Well, if we have another break, I'm gonna get another cup of tea. Catch you in a minute.
oh, okay, doke. So I'm just trying to think of what other stuff that is to tell you about. So I've got my Edinburgh show coming up, which is on at the Caves, which is like a gothic venue, and I think it's really going to suit the. It's really going to suit the aesthetics for the show. I'm just going to put the link in the chat for anyone who's interested. So here's a little thing for you, for anyone who's not been to the Edinburgh Fringe or put on a show at the Edinburgh Fringe. You've basically got to pitch your show in like January or February, and then come August, like things, you've had like 8 months of development. So if you go onto that link, it's like the actual show description is like, it's not untrue about like what the show's about, but like the show has like moved on so much that it's like I would really wish I could like rewrite it now because of how much it's changed. And you end up in this position where you're like, I can't change it too much, but also on the flip side, I want the show to evolve. So there's like stuff in there about like the cost of living crisis, which was originally in there, but as time's gone by, I've been like, oh, actually, this is like something that's taking like less and less prominence within the show. But it's like a selling feature, so I'm hoping that no one's going to come along and be like, you said you were going to talk about the cost of living crisis, and all you did was some magic tricks. To which I'm going to have to be like, well, I struggled to buy the tricks due to the cost of living crisis. So, ipso facto, it was running along in the background all the time. What else do I have that's coming up that's exciting? Me and Kirstie are doing the Blizzard the Blizzard Avalanche. Me and her on the same team, which should be really nice. I feel like because we've been doing this podcast, and I feel like me and Kirstie now are very good at tangentially chatting about stuff. It's now going to be a case of Johnny is very much going to have to rein us both in throughout it, because otherwise, it'll be like 40 minutes of me and Kirstie just chatting about anything and everything, which I'm sure some people won't mind, but the people who've actually been booked to do the show, I'm sure will want to actually actually do some comedy versus me and Kirstie just having a chat. So I've just got that. Let's put that in. Saf, don't you worry about it. I hope that you. I hope that you have a good evening and a good night. I'm not sleeping very well at the minute because of the heat, so as much as you can catch up on that as you can. Although you are about to miss me talking about what ended up happening to my Pidgeot, my original Pidgeot. So be sure to come back for that.
I'm sure she will tune in.
I feel like I've built it
Later
up now. I was just saying whilst you were gone, good night, mate. But no, I was just saying about how, because I feel like, because me and you do this podcast, and we're doing the Blizzard Avalanche next week. I feel like
me, you, and the brilliant Ella Bamba.
Yes.
Like, dream team.
Fantastic performer. But I feel like Johnny's going to have to, because me and you do this podcast and we go off on so many tangents now, I feel like Johnny's going to have to really rein us in.
Oh yeah, it's going to take some proper moderation on their part to stop us just going off on a tangent for 40 minutes about something that is not the thing we were supposed to be talking about.
Yeah,
We've been left unsupervised for too long. We've got too confident in our bullshit.
Very true, very, very true. So
as the 2.5 hour timestamp on this stream can attest to.
Honestly,
we've got another Pokemon to go.
Oh my word! Oh my word! Well, I mean, should we? Do you have anything that you want to plug before we move on?
Nah, I plugged everything last time.
Right. Well, should we go into Pidgeot and then hopefully we can get this done before midnight?
Can we? Let's go.
Right.
Pidgeot, Tom, tell us about your Pidgeot.
Okie doke. So, Uh, right, my Pidgeot was my main, my very first main, and also the reason why I don't have mains anymore. And the reason why I don't have mains, oh, honestly, it was like this is like one of my core Pokemon memories. So I was just like what I mentioned in the Pidgey episode. I was like, if I have, if I just get this Pidgey out, and like battle with this Pidgey exclusively, it gets loads of experience points. It's not being spread out. I can just like have this like absolute beast of a Pokemon, and it was just steamrolling everything until I got to Cinnabar Island, and I was in the Pokemon Mansion, and
hmm
I was going around, and I think it was poison, but it might have been burn. Um, I My Pidgeot died like outside of battle, no less.
Oh
And then I
no.
was stuck in the Pokemon Mansion with this entirely underleveled team that was, or it might have been no. I'll tell you what it was. Uh, it had it had run out of moves, and I think it was paralyzed. It's coming back to me now. I think it was paralyzed. It had run out of moves, so it couldn't even struggle like half the time because it would go to use struggle and it couldn't because it was paralyzed. So
Oh no.
I had to like get all of my other Pokemon. All my other Pokemon had died as well. So in my attempt to kind of, so I was left with this Pidgey that couldn't do anything. I was lost in the mansion, and I was basically waiting um, for this Pidgey to either get knocked out, which it probably couldn't because it was like level, it was probably like level 70 at this point, so nothing could like really take it on, and it couldn't move, and it couldn't struggle. So I remember being in there for such a long time that I was like, I can't ever do that ever again, and that's the reason why me slowly killing that Pidgeot in the mansion is like my sad memory of that Pokemon.
That sounds very traumatic. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
It's my own lack of foresight.
Yeah, you really wanted just another Pokemon or like some ether.
Well, do you know what? That's another thing as well, right? I was like, because this Pidgeot was like so dominant, I didn't need to buy no potions. I didn't need to buy
Yeah,
nothing. Um,
I've been there. I've been there.
I would just like sell my. I think if I'm right, I would just sell everything, and then I would just invest in either Pokeballs or like. I think if I'm right, I went to the Celadon apartment store and like bought like sold everything and bought like proteins and then
Yeah.
gave them all to
Okay.
this Pidgeot. So like it's all of its stats were like super high, and then when it was in this position where it couldn't fight and it was paralyzed, it could do nothing, and it was this slow attrition until it died.
Oh no.
So
Uh
that's why I don't main anymore.
yeah, I feel like not maining is smart. It's wise. It's something I learned similarly. Um, but yeah, it sounds like that's really stuck with you.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Um,
like a core Pokemon
core
memory.
memory.
Yeah,
So yeah, fair. Um, I don't think I have as vivid memories of a Pidgeot. Like obviously I have had Pidgeots. Um, a Pidgeot with fly is a good little Pokemon to have on your team. Um, especially in like the early generation games or games that where you know I prefer a Talonflame. Like if I'm gonna have like a bird Pokemon that you get early game and evolves into a fucking tank, Talonflame, and then Corbinite.
Oh, Corviknight's pretty sick.
Corviknight is sick.
Uh,
Um,
well, I tell you,
any others? What else do I like? What are the other bird ones you get? Because you just got because Pidgey was Gen 2 as well.
mm,
Like Pidgey wasn't just Gen 1, like Pidgey and Spearow and Hoot Hoot,
yeah,
because Gen 2 was when they introduced Knight,
yeah.
with Gen 2. And then three,
I
what
mean,
was three?
we're gonna mention this. We're gonna mention this come Gen 2, but it's so far off. I feel like that was such a clever way of doing the day night cycle of being like
Yeah,
of just like owls are well known for coming out at night, and then just be like, okay, so
yeah,
this is the bird Pokemon that comes out at night, and it's like it's so clear, like it's such a good Pokemon mechanic that they put into Hoot Hoot. Um, but one thing that I think also has like a bit of kind of um, a bit of kind of what's the word? A bit of credence towards the Pidgey line is that in the first generation there are certain Pokemon sprites that they have, and
yeah,
and I think there's only about 7 or 8 like Pokemon sprites that they actually have, and once you get Fly, it like you turn into a bird and you fly off, and there's like a little animation and stuff like that. Um,
yeah,
and I, I, feel free to correct me if you feel otherwise, but I feel like the sprite that they use is likely like a Pidgey or a Pidgeot,
yeah,
for that sprite.
definitely.
In the same way that the Clefairy sprite is clearly like meant to be a Clefairy, even though like Pikachu also does Pikachu have it, but like Jigglypuff also has it, even though it's very clearly meant to be a Clefairy.
Yeah,
The thing that's on top of the statues, even though you're told it's like a golem, is clearly like a Rhydon.
yes,
Um,
yeah,
but the
um,
but yeah, for that sprite to be like a Pidgey or a Pidgeot, I think for me, because I had this connection with Pidgeot, uh, further cemented like how attached I was. Because I'm pretty sure, if I'm right, when you use cut, you don't turn into the Pokemon. It just like cuts the
yeah, it just,
yeah.
yeah,
Um, Whereas when you get fly, you
yeah.
turn into the
Sometimes it swoops down and gets you. Sometimes it just, yeah,
yeah. Um,
depending on the game you're playing.
and obviously when you do surf, I want to say is a seal in the first generation.
Yeah, it looks. I think later on they also like experiment with like a Lapras and things, but and then I think they make it just sort of a shadow so that you can project onto it the Pokemon that you're using.
Mm. Oh yeah, it's a generic bird. Like they still use that same sprite for Moltres for Articuno, but it's
Yeah,
like it's
it matches Pidgeot the most.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, so I'm quite attached to Pidgeot just because of it being my main and me having to like old Yeller slowly put it down in the Pokemon Mansion.
Oh, but you can revive it.
Uh,
It's not like it's gone forever.
uh,
Um, yeah, none of my experiences using Pidgeot in battle have stayed with me. And I think it's one of those ones like it's so easy to slot into your team. It's so easy to have on your team that all of my experiences of using a Pidgeot in nearly every time I played red or blue kind of blur into one at this
mm,
point.
yeah,
It was like my backup
yeah,
when my starter was struggling that had some decent moves and that I actually used rather than just sending it out. So while I revived my starter to send that back out and be my main,
yeah, and
which is what I did with a lot of my teams as a child.
yeah, and I think that there are a lot of Pokemon that can probably relate to, and there will only be
Yeah.
for certain people like that one specific, like in my case, this one specific Pidgeot. Like I can have other Pidgeots since, but like that one that I had in the Pokemon Mansion is the one that I would consider like mine in inverted commas.
Yeah. No, I'm the same with my Crobat. Like I've had a Crobat on many a team, but like my Crobat is like that first one I evolved into a Crobat. Like that felt special.
Mm.
I think like I haven't watched the episode of Pokemon that has Pidgeot, Ash's Pidgeot in it in many a year. So, but like I remember it being heartfelt and emotional and a really
Mm.
nice wrap up to Pidgeotto's story. And also, like when Ash's Pokemon leave, they leave for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Like they leave because there is someone whose training style will very specifically suit what they need next.
Mm.
In the case of Primeape and Charizard, or because like they need to leave a Pokemon team in order to grow into their full self, like Butterfree.
Yeah.
Or and also in the case of Pidgeot, I think like it wanted to stay. It ties into the territorial stuff.
Mm.
That the Pidgeotto Pokedex entry said. It wanted to protect like its family, its community, and it chose to leave Ash. And I feel like, based on what we've said about Pidgeot being kind of a tank, and being a very powerful Pokemon out of only 150,
Mm.
um, because I think it really makes sense for your team to have your starter a Pidgeot and a Dragonite if you can get one.
Mm.
But if you pick Charizard, you've got three flying types by the end of your game
Yeah.
if you do that. Uh, and because those are the Pokemon you can get easily to their maximum form the easiest just by leveling up.
Yeah.
But I think because Pidgeot's such a massive tank, it might have made the Pokemon League too easy for Ash. And I think, it makes sense for them to have him lose,
Yeah.
so that they have an excuse to do another season, and so on and so forth. And I think that if Pidgeot had stayed with Ash, he would have been too powerful. He wouldn't have had to rely so much on Charizard, which wouldn't have then obviously had the big dramatic loss because of Charizard's attitude. I reckon Pidgeot would have given that other Charizard a real fucking run for his money. Except for the fact that Pidgeot had to like give up on their shared dream in order to pursue this new life,
Yeah.
and Ash respected that. So even though I agree that like Ash could have done a lot better with Pidgeot still on his team, I think that's kind of why they wrote Pidgeot out of the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that they could have that return to Ash's beginning.
Yeah. And I think from a narrative standpoint, it would have been much more difficult to believe that Pidgeot would disobey Ash in the same way that Charizard did,
Yeah,
because of the length of time that they were together, plus the fact that they'd done it before, and they kind of had almost set up this kind of Charmander had evolved too early, and then Charmeleon had, oh no, sorry, Charmeleon had evolved too early in order to take on Aerodactyl. So it was almost kind of like a bit of like a boisterous teen, and to have how long Pidgeotto was a Pidgeotto, it'd be difficult for you to be able to go, Pidgeotto evolved too early.
yeah. Because Pidgeotto was always a Pidgeotto. Ash didn't have it as a Pidgey,
Mm.
you know. But yeah, I think it was a clever narrative choice and a good emotional rounding up of the story arc.
Mm.
I understand that in later seasons, Ash has revisited Pidgeot, and Pidgeot came back to the team, and I think Ash might have mega evolved it in some instances now that it has returned. But I have not seen any of those episodes because I am not up to date on the anime.
No,
So I
I've,
can't comment on them. I just understand that that has happened.
yeah, I've watched little bits of the anime in recent years. So I watched little bits of Journeys. I've not watched any of the final 10. You know, the ones that were really hyped as like Ash's final. This is the big bow on the on Ash's story, even though they'll probably bring him back in some way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I probably fell off around. I feel like I stopped watching properly around about the Sapphire, Ruby, Magma, um, Magma and Aqua trying to like play Kyogre and Groudon off against each other.
Yeah.
And that's around about the time that I think I had burnout from the show anyway, not the show, from the franchise anyway. Um,
Yeah.
and then just because of how much content there is, I think it's difficult to be able to like. At what point do I like jump back in? Do I just jump back in at the final 10 episodes? Do I jump back in at Journeys? Do I just watch the whole thing? And you know, I know that's like emblematic of animes because I really like Naruto. But like there's
Yeah.
there's a shitload of it now, like particularly Shippuden and the like the Great Ninja War that happens about midway through, and it's the same with like I get people who say to me, "Oh, you should check out One Piece." Like I'm sure, like I might be wrong on this, but I'm
Yeah.
sure it's got like 1,000 episodes. And it's like I ain't got the time to watch 1,000 episodes of something like even though it's really good. It's like I ain't got the time.
Yeah, I get that. Like when there are so many episodes of a show that's been going for so long, um, it's difficult to know where to jump back in. It's difficult to know. I think with Pokemon, I don't think it'd be too difficult to have it to just start again at the beginning, but then have all the seasons that I've already seen and I already know just play in the background while I'm at work because I can work from home. Obviously, that is not the case for you. You can't put Pokemon on in a school, or like
Oh,
neither you
it
nor the
seems to
children
be
will get
having a
any
great
work
time.
done.
I was gonna say they'd be having a good time
Um,
now.
but like, yeah, for me, I could quite easily just pop it on in the background
Mm,
while I'm getting my shit done in my day job
mm.
because I can sit at home and watch TV while I'm working. That is the joy of my pointless, boring job that has no real value to society.
God, I need one of
That
those
pays
so
my
bad.
bills and it's flexible.
God, I need one of those so
I
bad.
can work from home. It's very, very unmotivated and very unfulfilled, but like, fuck me, and my bills paid.
God,
Like,
that sounds amazing.
it's fucking not. Yeah.
uh, so
And sometimes my bills ain't paid. Support us on Patreon.
yes, get on the Patreon. Get on it now. Um, on that note, should we have a look at the decks?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Let's get back to what this fucking show is about.
Yes.
I feel like, right, if we tracked how much of this show we talked about the Pokemon we're supposed to be talking about and how much we talked about other bullshit, we'd probably talk about the relevant Pokemon like 5%.
Um, if
And
if
weirdly enough, I think the Pokemon so far with the highest percentage that we've talked about it might be Kakuna.
well, this show is full of surprises at all times. Slowly followed by Execute. Execute is moving up the list of Pokemon that we've talked about.
We are gonna, yeah, we're gonna. Tell you what, I'm quite looking forward to the Execute episode because I reckon the Pokedex bit is gonna be gross.
Uh,
I reckon I'm gonna learn way too much about his innards.
I look forward to learning about its innards. That's what I live for now. Any Pokemon
Okay.
I wish to know about their innards. Um,
Oh,
on that note, should we have a look at? I've just had a look at the artwork. I'm not that impressed by the official artwork.
it just looks like a big Pidgeotto, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
It doesn't
does.
look. It looks less aggressive than Pidgeotto in the official artwork.
Mm.
I think it just looks like it's flying.
Like for me, the official game sprite that I like used for my drawing for the competition, and the trading card game image, I think I like so much better than this official piece of artwork. Like I want to see if I can I want to see if it's got the official artwork for the trading card. I want to see. So that there's presumably it there. There it is. That was like the one that was like ingrained in my mind, and I think that looks so much better than the one that like they use on the official, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I mean, I feel like that one there for the trading card is like a little bit. What's the word? It's a little bit like you could imagine, like if there was like an American Pokemon, that'd be it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it looks very aggressive.
Well, surely the American Pokemon is Braviary.
I let's get Braviary up dead quick.
It's an eagle, the colours of the US flag.
Let's see. Oh yes, that there is Donald Trump the Pokemon. If ever I saw it, even
No,
down to the
that's
headpiece.
Gumshoes. Gumshoes is Donald Trump the Pokemon.
Gumshoes.
Gumshoes.
Oh God, I didn't know that was a thing.
Tom fucking learning a bunch of new
Oh,
Pokemon
I
today.
did know that was a thing actually.
Yeah, you got to do your homework before we get to these episodes.
Yeah, in the I've come across one of these and I called it, because in the streams that I do on the channel where we do Pokemon Violet and I let the chat like name them. That's been named. I think it's been named something like Angry Mongoose. But yeah, it's Donald Trump, that, isn't it? Right. Anyway, back as you was. I feel like the point has been very much made that we spend time not talking about the Pokemon that we're meant to be talking about. So let's get back to Pidgeot. So I've got the dex entries back up.
Yes.
When hunting, it skims the surface of water at high speed to pick off unwary prey such as Magikarp. I appreciate the fact that they've used an actual Pokemon again.
Yes, but I also feel like it's going for easier prey than Pidgeotto. Is Pidgeotto trying to prove something by going 60 miles to find an execute? But Pidgeot, who's apparently the big bad, will just pick up any random Magikarp.
Well, this is where I disagree, because how hard is it to pick up an execute? It's just an egg with a face, whereas a Magikarp,
It's 6 whole eggs. I don't know how they fit into claws. We've established this. Doesn't make any sense.
Well, for me, Magikarp could be being protected by a Gyarados.
Well, that's where the next entry comes in. This Pokemon flies in at Mach 2 speeds, seeking prey. So it like zips around the Gyarados faster than an aeroplane and just like scoops up its little useless babies for dinner. Although I'm pretty sure it's canon that Magikarp is just scale and bone. And absolutely has no nutritional value. So I feel like Red and Blue Professor is talking out his ass.
Well, I feel like we're at the first dick swinging right now, because I'm just gonna Google how fast is max speed 2. Right, max speed 2 is 2,469.6 kilometers per hour.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. Or in miles per hour, that works out at 1,534.5 miles per hour.
Motherfucker.
That's a lot.
Motherfucker. That is a lot.
Yeah.
So it can definitely catch something faster than a Magikarp if it wanted to.
Yeah. It says
Is all
here
I'm saying.
that Mach 2 is called Mach 2 because it's twice the speed of sound. So, like, that's...
So how does anyone in the Pokemon world have any fucking eardrums left?
Well, maybe this is the reason why Pidgeot don't have no ears.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I like the fact that Stadium Professor is almost putting them in their place and being like, no, it can't fly at max speed 2. it is capable of flying incredibly quickly.
Yeah. But it does also imply it's faster than the speed of sound. It says in full flight, by the time its flapping is heard, it is long gone.
Ah,
So by the time you hear it, it's already traveled further. So it's traveling faster than it takes the sound of its flapping wings to reach you.
well,
So
well, I am impressed. Um,
I like the gold one. Its well-developed chest muscles make it strong enough to whip up a gusty windstorm with just a few flaps. Now, I feel like that's a really weirdly structured sentence, but I can't put my finger on why.
do you know what it made me think of? Right, and I know I shouldn't think this. Right, um, right, right. I've definitely not said on the channel before, but I think I've said to you before. Right, I really like chicken, like to eat. Right, and when it was like saying it's well developed chest muscles, I was like, I bet that makes a fantastic roast dinner.
Yeah,
Like, I bet that's like so tasty, but it might be tough. So,
yeah.
so maybe it'd make it like a good jerky, like a good chicken jerky, or like chicken strips. Um,
I quite like
KFP.
the silver one as well because I feel like it's looking at a new element. So it's not it spreads its beautiful wings wide to frighten its enemies and then back to Mach 2. But like
Yeah,
that's cool. That's like it's beautiful and threatening.
yeah.
Um which I like the idea of.
Um,
Um
I felt like that reminded me of that trading card artwork, like more so
yeah.
than the official artwork. Like that trading card artwork looked very like elegant versus the one that was initially that was just a, basically a Pidgeotto with that's not cut its hair having a fly. Um, but
I think
I don't know
this
if
is also carry on. You go first.
I don't know if you felt like this, but I've going through the Pokedex entries that we just have, the Pidgey one, the Pidgeotto one, for me it feels like they are writing these with the idea that most people would probably not check the Pokedex until they've got a Pidgeot. It feels like they put more effort into these versus the other two.
Um, we've had a comment in the chat that the well-developed chest muscle is the Pokedex telling us that Pidgeot has the best tits.
Well, well, I, I never claimed to be a perfect artist.
Nah, you gave Pidgeotto the tits.
Yeah, Pidgeotto's the one with the tits right there. Maybe that's why Caterpie is like
It's not afraid,
so
it's like
startled.
aroused.
Yeah, it's going. If it looks like that as a Pidgeotto, imagine what they're going to look like as a Pidgeot.
Uh, um, so I do like that some of them because I think Pidgeot does look cool. I think it does have like a pretty plumage out of the flying types available in the first gen because it's got the yellow and pink, where Fearow doesn't, and then the legendary birds are legendary. People don't see them. I like Ruby and Sapphire. This Pokemon has a dazzling plumage of beautifully glossy feathers. Many trainers are captivated by the striking beauty of the feathers on its head, compelling them to choose Pidgeot of their Pokemon. I feel like the Ruby and Sapphire professor was a bit horny for Pidgeot. Um, and Fire Red, it spreads its gorgeous wings wide. And then Leaf Green was like, no, let's get back to basics and stop having a hard on for the bird, please. When hunting, it skims the surface of water at high speed.
So there we
Um,
go. Ruby and Sapphire Professor is a furry, confirmed.
is a furry. Um, I like and then it goes back to then we get a bit more dick swinging. By
Yeah,
flapping its wings with all its might, Pidgeot can make a gust of wind capable of bending tall trees. Okay, but how wide are these
that
trees?
was my
Because if
thought.
they're tall, skinny trees, like I can bend them. Like if they're massive, thick trees,
Mm.
that's more of a challenge. Like tall trees are not as much of a challenge to bend as wide trees. And I feel like the Diamond and Pearl Professor needs to think about the information it's giving us and how useful it actually is.
Yeah, I think that they were. I think that they were trying to put us off the scent of that. It also had a hard on for Pidgeot. Like when it, like I think tall trees is a euphemism for their willy.
There, Willie.
Yeah, it's capable of bending tall trees. Diamond and Pearl Professor, can you stop referring to yourself in that way? Can you stop calling yourself a tall tree? No. Put your lab coat back on, for the love of God.
I mean, at least he didn't put Pidgeot can make a gust of wind capable of bending girthy trees.
Yeah, veiny
Like,
trees.
veiny girthy trees.
Ah, veiny girthy mushrooms.
Veiny, oh. Um, what else we got? Well-developed chest muscles, beautiful wings, tall trees, tall trees. Black and White 2 was horny as well. Um, surface of the water, gorgeous wings, dazzling plumage.
Yeah, back to
Yeah,
horny.
all repeats. Actually, let's go Pikachu. No, oh, sorry, that's Mega Pidgeot. I was like, oh, that's different, and that's its Mega Evolution.
What
Yeah.
is the Mega Revolution? What we got here? With muscular strength now greatly increased, it can fly continuously for 2 weeks without resting. Uh, I mean, I think that's impressive, and links to
So
the real
how
world.
far? So if it can go 2 weeks without resting, and it can go Mach 2 as a Pidgeot, when it's Mega Pidgeot,
Yeah,
first off, what's its maximum speed? And what does that mean for how far it can get for 2 weeks without resting? Because I feel like if you're traveling twice as fast as the speed of light, you can go pretty fucking far in a short amount of time. Why would Mega Pidgeot ever need to fly for 2 weeks? What is it doing? Like hunting Magikarp on Venus?
right. I'm gonna work out how far it can go.
And that's assuming it's not going faster than regular Pidgeot. It's just going a regular amount of fast.
2469 times. So that's per hour times 24. Times 2 weeks, so that's 14. So, okay. 59,264 times 14. Okay, so it can travel in 2 weeks. Assuming, because we don't have anything other than Mach 2 to go off of. I feel like game theory right now, because we've got nothing other than Mach 2 to go off of. But it is 829,696 miles. How far is that?
In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, that's how far it can go.
Okay. So, where can it get? Say it starts in London. Where can it get?
Well, we're gonna find out. Eight. I'm guessing it's basically out in space.
Do you reckon it can get to? Hang on, I'm gonna Google. So it's 800 and something thousand miles, yeah?
829,
So
829,696.
the moon at its furthest distance from the Earth is 251,000 miles away.
Wow.
So
So,
it can get to the moon in like 3 days.
well, I, if that is not worthy of a Mega Pidgeot, I don't know what is.
But so how do they know it can fly for 2 weeks if it was like well past the moon by that point? How are they like, yeah, Pidgeot's still flying when actually it's like frozen into a chunk of ice like on the way to Mars?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Did an astronaut in the International Space Station see a Pidgeot keep going and was like, "Fuck me, I've got to text Professor Oak."
they're like, how's it got all those six executed its talons? How's it done that?
How is it carrying 6 execute and a Magikarp?
It only has two talons.
He's
What's
only
it
got
doing?
2 hands.
Well, I mean, if you want some realism, though, it's Mars is 323.14 million kilometers, so it
So it's
couldn't
not getting
get
to
to Mars.
Mars,
Yeah.
but it can get past the moon. It can get past the moon 3 times over in 2 weeks, and then some.
Yes. Well, and if that's not more of a reason to teach your Pidgeot fly, I don't know what is.
I really hope. I'm kind of glad Pidgeot aren't real because, like, imagine some little kid wanted to be an astronaut, mega evolving a Pidgeot, and being just like, take me to the moon. We'll be there in 3 days, and then like freezing to death.
Well, I think that's one way of controlling the population, isn't it?
Letting the idiots fly on their Pidgeot to the moon.
Yeah, yeah. Did you know that if you can get
Get it
that you
eaten
can
by
get your
Deoxys.
yeah you can actually get your mega Pidgeot to fly to the moon in 3 days, and then they go, oh, that sounds amazing. Well, I need anything for that? Nope, just a Pidgeot, mate. Just a
No, no, you need just you need your Pidgeotite so you can mega evolve it.
yeah,
And that's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you need the HM for fly. That's all you need.
HM for flying, and then you can go to the moon. Well, you need to have been to the moon first.
I mean, that's the thing. My Pidgeot from the game, I'm sure, was looking at
Your
me.
Now that we've said that, your Pidgeot looks like it's pulling a well shifty face, like it just dropped an annoying child on the moon, and now it's pretending it didn't do that.
This is like I imagine it was plotting its revenge from me slowly killing it in that mansion for years.
Tom's Pidgeot dropped him on the moon.
Yeah, and that's the reason why. That's the reason why I have asthma now.
I mean, I'm amazed you have any lungs at all. So congratulations, you made it back, and I think that's the important thing.
Yeah. So there we go. Look at that. This podcast is very much a learning experience, in my opinion. Right. Should we have a look at its Smogon rating?
Let's do it.
Right. Let's do it. Okay. So let's. So there it is. So we'll probably get that up and then we'll have a look at its Mega Evolution. So so it's in untiered, which I'm somewhat surprised at, and also not surprised at. Let me just double check. All Pokemon that are not overused, underused, rarely used, never used, and are not banned to Ubers are considered untiered, whilst any of the aforementioned Pokemon can be used in PU. I'm not entirely sure. I'll check that up in a minute. Only those Pokemon that make up at least 3.41% of total weighted usage in the tier are designated PU. A Pokemon is truly PU if a typical competitive player is more than 50% likely to encounter that Pokemon at least once in a given day of playing. Untiered is not a playable tier. Generally, the use of untiered Pokemon in competitive metagame is strongly discouraged. So, from the sounds of things, it sounds like it's decent, but it's so common that there's like no point in using
that
it.
people don't really use it. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think anyone can um catch one really easily. You know, they're common enough that you can keep hunting around until you find one. Well, you can find a Pidgey with good stats and level it up. I think it makes sense that people want to be a bit more creative in the Pokemon that they use frequently.
Yeah,
And although it slots into a team really well for like the story, the gym challenge narrative, I think if you're going to build a competitive team, it makes sense that it misses out a little bit. And
yeah,
I think they introduced Mega Pidgeot again for the storyline and not for the gym challenge team and not necessarily the actual competitive play.
yeah. Um, now that I can see the animation moving, I feel like Pidgeot looks a lot better in like movement than it does like as a like a static image. So let's go down and have a look at its Mega Evolution. That looks pretty cool. It looks a tiny bit uninspired, in my opinion.
I mean, I don't disagree, but I also feel like it kind of suits the way like the whole line is designed because it's just a bird. Like it doesn't have anything else really about it. It's just a little bird, and then it's a bigger bird, and then it's a bigger bird, and then it's a bigger bird.
Yeah,
Like it's got slightly different color plumage. That's it.
yeah. I like the way that it's got its arms spread out because that is in line with the canon that we read about it being able to fly for 2 weeks. Because I
Yeah.
don't know if you know, but most birds that fly for long distance like lock their wings. And that looks like similar to the real world, like it's locked them, uh,
Yeah.
which I quite like.
Yeah, definitely.
It's got decent stats. It got U. Let's just double check what that is. Underused. So, I would guess again. Not so. I'm not going to read that out again. But I'm guessing that again. That's connected to how easy it is to get a Pidgey and get a decently leveled Pidgey and then give it a Mega Evolution. But
Yeah,
having said that, if you've got, am I right in thinking you can only Mega Evolve one Pokemon per battle?
I think so.
Um, and it's like if you've got that and a Charizard, you're much more likely to Mega Evolve your Charizard than you are
Definitely.
to Mega Evolve that.
Definitely.
So it doesn't surprise me
Um,
that again that's underused.
yeah,
Yeah,
doesn't surprise me either. Like I think it's it's just no one's real first choice for competitive play.
yeah. So should we give it our Trubbish rating?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
What are you feeling? What do you think?
So because of my attachment to it, I'm gonna give it an 8. But again, I am fully aware that probably most people would maybe have it a tiny bit lower.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with a 6 because I feel like uh I've kind of used it so often. All of my memories of using it blur into one. It's not in the anime long enough for me to have connected with it in the same way as Pidgeotto, but I do appreciate um like I feel like it's kind of a double-edged sword how easy it is to fit into a team.
Mm,
Like it means I have won a lot, but then it also means I'm like, this again, I'm playing the same game again. Why don't I try something
mm,
else? And it's because Pidgey's right there, you know?
yeah,
So easy to be right there.
yeah,
Um, so I can't really give it higher than that, but I also I would feel I would feel disingenuous going any lower because of how frequently I have used it.
yeah. Right, should we draw it all to a close?
Let's do it.
Right,
Thank you for spending this evening with us to our
yeah,
lovely viewer at this point, but we love you, man.
yes,
Uh, and yeah, we'll catch you on the next one, Monday, 10th of July. If you're not going to see Blizzard comedy, we will understand if you want to go see Blizzard
yeah,
comedy. This will be up on the podcast if you want to listen to it later. Don't forget to catch Tom's show on Monday, 3rd of July at Gulliver's. And don't forget to tune in to twitch.tv/ Blizzard Comedy on a Monday where me and Tom and Ella
yeah.
Bamburst are going to be on a team against Katie Mitchell, Mabel Slattery, and I should remember the last person because it's a very stacked, cool lineup. Ishi Khan. Oh, that poor lady. Imagine being called Ishi while Rishi is like the world's country's most hated man.
Well,
Ah,
it's
poor
all
thing.
material, as they say on the circuit.
But yeah, tune into that on Monday. We're all going to have a great time. We're going to talk about the news and we're going to be funny about it and not sad.
Yeah,
And we will have our pictures up for you to vote on at some point this week. Mwah.